boys.
Nice.
We're only about what 4 or 5 days late for this, which is not bad.
Yeah.
Almost a week, nothing too big.
Well,
Blame my illness.
we're 4 minutes early from when it's been scheduled, but we're actually like 4 days late from when it was originally agreed that we was going to be here. How you doing?
Fantastic.
Better late than never.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Right, yep, we're live on everything. So, go. Why don't you do what you always do and lead us into this fantastic podcast?
All right. We've got Druid Deep Dive Part 2. Part 1, we covered a lot of basics. If you missed it, the VOD is on YouTube. It might still be on Kick as well. Definitely check that out. So there might be some stuff tonight that's left out, and that's because we've already gone over it. Like all the spell changes, I think we covered like professions, glyphs, a couple other things in that first episode. But now we're going to be talking a little bit about like talents, breaking down the entire talent tree for Resto, both Ferals and Boomy. And then who knows where it's going to go from there.
Yeah, I think like covering talents, we'll look at Resto, yeah. We'll look at all three. We'll look at talents. If we want to touch on any like cool builds, which I do want to talk about one. Bearbis wants to talk about potential rotation changes that we might see. It will just be everything Druid in general, which I'm actually excited for because I have been on my Druid a lot on the beta today, specifically today, and it's been very frustrating, which I'm sure we'll get into. So if we go round and have just a quick couple of minutes on like what we've actually been doing. Obviously, the beta's had an update for those who don't know. If like literally all you rely on for information is this podcast. Firstly, that would be really weird. Why would you do that? Secondly, if that is the case, then we can now get to 85. There is now level 80 character copies, if they work for some people, or don't for others, apparently. But the beta's in a very strange state, and I think I've seen the majority of it. But go. Let's start with you. What have you been doing on Cataclysm?
So I had leveled up to 74, I think it was. Maybe it was 76. I don't remember. And then that's when they opened up the template characters, copy characters, the 85. And I just made a template character. It came with all the glyphs. So I don't even think that there's a glyph vendor on the beta. So if you're copying your character, then good luck getting any of the new glyphs or glyphs you don't have yet. So I just hit 85 earlier today. It took a while. I feel like it took like an extra hour for me to get from like one level to the next. And then even 84 to 85 was brutal. It probably took me a solid 8-10 hours of questing to get there. And I wasn't expecting that. It was pretty smooth, 80 to 83. And then it started to slow down to 83 to 84. And then 84 was just like, fuck, man.
84 to 85 is rough. It's very rough.
I did most of the quest. I did all of Mount Hyjal. I even did the flap quest all the way through to get the pet at the end of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, man! I am so proud. That is amazing. That is literally the best. I just want to put it out there. I've played with you for quite a while now, and that is the best thing you've ever done. Nothing would top that.
It's actually fun. It's really fun to try to figure out how you can move your character because it's a bugged quest and you get on a mount and then you're in this little lava cave, and if you fall to the bottom and you start to flap, it just takes you one direction, and you have to line yourself up to be able to flap high enough and clip into mobs. And it was really interesting to try to figure out how to do it. And then you have to do it again. After you've done it once, you've killed 10 of them, you have to do it again a second time.
Well, I done the getting on the platform. I done the first quest. That was it. I done the one to get on the platform, and then was like, man, I'm out of here. Like that's too much.
So I finished pretty much maybe I missed one drop quest or something, but Hyjal completed it, all of it. And then I went to Deep Home, and then I did all the way like 105 out of the 110 for the achievement, and There's that quest where you get on to it, puts you on a little platform, and you're supposed to click platforms and make your way up to the top and then fight like a dragon in the air. That's completely bugged. Only the beginner platform is spawned, and then you can't make your way up at all. The dragon's not flying around anywhere. So I got all the way up as far as I could in Deep Home. And then I wasn't high enough level, I don't think, to go to the next zone, to Oldham. So I went to like Vashir's Landing or whatever. I went to the underwater zone.
From all that,
Did
you
every
didn't get
single-
to 83?
I stopped at that one bugged one where you drop the totem. I didn't think it was completable, so I did like half of Deep Home to begin with, and then I went to Vashir. Then after I realized you could do that quest, I went back to Deep Home. But I wanted to finish all of Vashir. I hope I'm saying that right. I hope that's the name of the water zone.
Vashir.
Bashir, yeah.
Yeah.
Vashir,
whatever.
okay, yeah.
Yep.
So I did every single quest through there, got the achievements or whatever, and went back to Deep Home, did that. Finally went to Oldham. I didn't really want to do Oldham, and then it got to a point where it's a quest that's bugged on there. You're supposed to talk to some NPCs, but they just don't spawn. Like they're just not even in the game. And then finally today went to Twilight Highlands, and it was okay. It was hard for me to figure out where the fuck to start in that zone. I tried to do the breadcrumb quest in Orgrimmar, and that was bugged. The NPC to turn in one of those quests wasn't there. So I just went to Twilight Highlands, flew around until I saw a quest giver, and I lucked out that I found one, and then did probably 80% of that. But yeah, questing, it's been fun. Like the new zones are incredible. The new quest lines.
Oh my god, I've got a semi, because I mean this is the guy this is the guy that despised Cataclysm. You know, this is the guy that was like, nah, I won't be playing that. I'll be playing Sod. Like, forget Cataclysm.
Well,
And he just said he's loving it.
I'm not loving the balanced druid, okay?
Yeah,
I'm
you're obviously
loving
not good enough, because
the
I already told
journey.
you before this. Tom Doddy, big shout out to Big Dodders, is pumping as a boomy. Pumping.
I haven't got to use my mushrooms yet, so maybe that'll, once I start to get my shrooms laid out there and exploding, then maybe it'll start to feel good.
Yeah, and I mean,
But
yeah,
there's-
it's that. That is like such a. We spoke about mushrooms, didn't we? Obviously on part 1, and like, I've been watching what he's doing, because apparently, like, it's better to watch other people than watch myself. Like, I just die and then I lay on the floor and I just watch what everyone else is doing. It's just, it's much easier for me. And you know, like, he's really good at precasting mushrooms in places he knows they're going to be useful next, and then add spawn, and it's like, oh, they're all dead. You know, but by the time it accesses my thought process of I'm going to start AoEing, his mushrooms are down, they're all dead. It's like, oh right, we'll move on with our life. Like, but honestly, like, but that's what we said, didn't we? We said in the first part that like Boomy is so there's so much reliance on understanding the fights, like more so than the rotation. And yeah, Big Dodders is showing that.
But it's still a lot of bugs with Druid and other classes. So it's like, I feel like I'm just getting fucking trucked anytime a mob gets next to me. So killing one mob at a time seems to be the way for me to go. I hope it's not going to be like that when it goes live. Like heals seem to not do anything. I hope that's also
That's
a
right.
bug.
No, that's not a bug. That's right. Yeah.
Your heals don't do anything. Like
Big health
it's
pools, low heals.
ridiculously low.
That's cat. That's cat.
And speaking of health pools, I'm at 88,000 health right now, and that's just from like questing gear. I haven't done anything since I dinged 85. Like 88,000 health. It's ridiculous. And then
Large.
60k mana. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's even without like Mark of the Wild doesn't work, so I'm not getting the extra 5% stam or int from that. The leather working the leather specialization doesn't work, which gives extra 5% int. So I'm looking forward to when all these little minor bugs that you put them all together makes it a completely different experience than what we're going to see when it goes live. But I want to get into some dungeons. I didn't do a single dungeon, so
the good thing is,
I know
go.
you've been doing that.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we'll let these guys go first before I talk about mine, because mine might take a minute. But on the health, you know, like when we were talking last week, or it might have actually been on the general Cata podcast rather than Druid specific, about like the item level curve feeling good in Cata. You know, where it's like when we was probably arguing about gammas whether they need to be there or not. You know, like you've got like 88k health and you've got no gear, right? You're like in maybe some greens that you've picked up while you've been questing. My full epic with Firelands gear Druid has only got 122k. So it's like, you know, it's not like, oh my god, we're going to have like millions of health. You know, you do, once you get all greens and blues at level 85, it then slowly creeps up. But when you're getting hit, which you've got to bear in mind, so you're like, well, 88k to 122k sounds a lot. But when you've got mobs in heroics doing holy fires for 45k, you know, like that's a lot, and that's what we was dealing with in Dead Mines earlier. The tank getting hit for 45k a cast. Yeah, like you need a decent amount of health.
Oh yeah.
But good. I'm so happy that you've actually like got to 85 and at least enjoyed the journey so far, and you know, wanting to carry on.
I think it's important, you know, because I was absolutely shitting on Cata. I was like, dude, like, I don't even want to play it. I don't even want to log in. There's no point. The game sucks. And it was a lot of people like me hearing other people saying that it sucks. So it's like, oh, yeah, of course. They say it sucks. It's got to suck. But I gave it the shot. You know, I'm not going to continuously shit on it after it's out. I can do it as much as I want before it launches. Like phase 3 of SOD, I can be like, yo, that's going to be a shit phase. I'm still going to play it. I'm still going to log in, level up to 50 and do the raid, do all that stuff. But it's the people that shit on it and then don't give it a chance. Fuck those guys. I'm not going to be one of those guys. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sorry, I've just realised Bearbiss has got a green t-shirt on, and for some reason his camera was chroma keyed, and I really enjoyed looking at it for a minute until I was like, I'm looking up at him on Discord, and I'm like, there's something not quite right between the two, between what they're seeing and what I'm seeing. It's sorted now. It's fine. But good. No, that's good. Table, yours is going to be probably quite quick on what you've been doing on the Cata beta, because you haven't been doing anything, you lazy.
Yeah, I haven't been doing much because it's as soon as I had to like do 2 things that required effort to like be able to actually play, I was like, yeah, never mind. I'm just gonna play a different game. I think it's mostly because like I'm excited to be on beta to like test stuff like specifically for Feral, whereas right now the beta is up for things to be tested in a general sense. So like some of the stuff that I want to test, I can't test yet because there's a bunch of stuff that's still wrong with the game. So it's like it's that weird kind of dichotomy between what type of testing we want to do as players of specific specs and classes versus Blizzard wanting us to test to make sure the game itself is fine. So it's like I want to do specific testing, and we can't really do that yet because there's so much stuff that's still wrong with the game.
Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah.
So that's mostly why I haven't really been doing a whole lot on the beta right now, is because the stuff I want to test I can't. So it's like, why bother?
Okay, so Bearbiss, what have you done on the beta?
So I leveled a troll druid from 1 to 80. Enjoyed the entire process throughout because I just was mopping the floor with Go on levels.
I get
that
one,
was the funnest part
like
of it.
8. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I stopped. I just stopped playing the beta because like my character templates for my live characters won't transfer over. So like I can't do anything on the beta for what I wanted to do at this point because it's just saying character copy failed. So I haven't really touched my druids since 80. Like I got all the professions done and everything on that druid, but I just haven't really played it because I know that there's so many bugs with the new zones and all the other quests. I'm gonna have to log out, log back in, have to go back and relearn all of my talents every single time because of those bugs.
The DCs are killer. It's a whole vibe kill. Like you get into a quest, it's like an escort, or you're doing an elite, and then you DC, you come back in, somebody else has engaged the mob that you got down to 10% health, and now they're killing it, getting their quest done, and if the DCs got fixed, the beta would be a whole lot more enjoyable, even with the other bugs that aren't disconnecting you. But that has been a big buzzkill of mine, and that slowed my journey because I'm like, do I want to just keep DCing right now? Like, what the fuck is going on?
I don't mean to sound like I'm just digging at you for the sake of it, Go, but I think that's actually your lack of understanding of what's going on. Like, and again, I don't mean this in a bad way. You know, Blizzard said they was going to add like a Heroic Plus version. So when we started doing the dungeons, what Heroic Plus turns out to be is it's like a roulette DC. So every time you pull a mob, like a roulette wheel's going on that we can't see, and you don't know who's going to get DC'd and kicked out of the party. But I think that's working in the open world as well, which is not actually right. So, like earlier on, we pulled a boss in Deadmines Heroic. All four people DC'd. The only person that was left alive was the healer. But because it kicks you from the party, you've then got to all try and rush to log back in. The healer's now dying because like he's the only person online, having to try and invite everyone back. I mean, it's the DCs, mate. Honestly, they always happen at the most frustrating part.
Yeah.
So if we move,
I
just wanted to talk about Twilight Islands.
Oh yeah.
Like Twilight Islands. So like I was in a very emotional mood yesterday. Yeah, like I must have been my time of the month. Because I logged on and was like, right, let's smash it. Like I'm on my mage. All I've got is Twilight Islands to do. Because I've been doing a lot of other things. I've been doing dungeons. I'm leveling my paladin now as well. I'm max mining on my farming character. I've been doing tailoring and engineering on my mage. You know, like I'm doing a little bit of everything. But I got on the gunship to go to Twilight Islands and then DC'd on the gunship. And then my character was stuck online in the world. Bearing in mind, the sole purpose of firing the stream up yesterday was to get that mage to 85, just to do Twilight Islands. And I was like locked out of it to the point where I'd given up. I'm not talking I was locked out for 5 minutes. I copied my paladin over, set its weak auras up, set its UI up, set everything up. Tried logging in. Nope, still like that character exists. You could see me online in the guild still. I'd almost given up hope, and everybody who was watching live on Kick would have seen the joy just drain from my face. You know, I was like, it's going to be a great stream. Let's go. Let's pump on the mage. To then like, oh, God, I kind of hope I get a power cut. Like, just end this. Someone just, like, something happen. I don't care what. A storm come in and just fucking destroy me. Like, just something. But then I tried again and I did get in. But like a good 20 minutes later, I'd say. But like the DC seems to happen at the worst time. Like you said, you'll be doing an escort. You'll be in some sort of like quest where you've got an item down that's doing something, and then you'll log back in and the boss ain't there anymore. And it's so frequent. I mean, I DC'd about 18 times in the space of, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes earlier on today.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that before on any beta. And I've played pretty much every beta, even betas of WoW expansions that I've never actually played when they're live. You know, like Shadowlands beta. I've never seen it this bad.
Yeah, neither have I. I was trying to think, like, at one point, people have been speculating, like, what's causing the DCs. And like day 1, day 2, even people were like, "Oh, it's because I'm in a guild. I need to drop the guild and rejoin the guild." So I didn't even join the guild on the beta until I just dinged 85. But I don't know if that ever caused it.
Let me. I just want so actualize. Is there anything good about the beta or only complaints? I'm fucking loving it.
I praised it at the 5 minutes ago. I was praising it. How much fun I'm having doing the quest. As long as we're not getting DC'd, it's fine.
I want to make it very clear.
It's fine.
Yeah, I'm loving it. All the bugs, I don't give a shit. The bugged heroics, the bugged dungeons, the bugged quests where you then have to go somewhere else. I don't care. Like, trust me, I am so far from complaining. You don't know what complaining even is if you think I'm complaining about it, because I am having the best time I've had on WoW since Wrath launched. I'm genuinely loving every fucking minute on the beta. Of course, I get pissed off when I'm doing It's very difficult to not get pissed off when you're doing an escort or something, and then you DC. and you have to start it again. But you've got to be a literal angel to not get annoyed at that and want to shout the word cunt. But the heroics have been hilarious. I've been loving it when people are DCing. And it's like, oh shit, quick, get everyone invited again. It's actually made it more fun that we're getting DC'd. So trust me, there's no complaints from me. Like, it's a beta. Of course, I've got no issues with the fact we're getting to points in zones where things are bugged and they're not working. I've got no complaints that certain classes have got things that don't work. Like, I don't think Arcane Mage Master is working properly. I mean, Ret is just disgusting. Like, Ret, honestly, I've been leveling my Ret Paladin today, and it is probably the most fun I've had on a Paladin for a long time. It is so overpowered. It is pathetic.
You could almost say it's retarded.
It really is. It really is.
It is.
No, honestly, it is so much fun to the point where I am even though my mage is going to be my main in Cata when it goes live, I'm leveling my paladin first because it's just going to be so much quicker to get to 85, get established quickly, get the professions up, while then I'm doing my druid, which is going to be my gathering, character in the background on a second account, and then do my mage afterwards when the zones are just less contested and everything. But just running through mobs and just plowing through everything, it's too much fun.
Yeah. I checked my slash played. I played it for 1 day, 16 hours. So there's no shot I would have given it 2-3 hours of playtime if I wasn't having fun. I'm not just gonna log into a game for nothing. Like, I'm having fun. Like, I can't tell you exactly what it is, but something about the quest, the new zones, the new abilities, all that stuff, it's all fresh. But it still feels classic to me. This still feels far away from like what I would consider retail. So yeah, it's still classic to me, and I'm still gonna play it.
Wait till you get in the dungeons. So like, just briefly what I've been doing. I've got my mage to 85. I've been working on tailoring and engineering. I've kind of given up on engineering because the professions are not... I'm not saying they're bugged. They're not really meant to be being tested at the moment. That's what I'm putting it down to. Because, like, when you level professions in Cata, when you use a lot of materials for an item that might be a blue item, you're meant to get multiple skill points. You're not getting that. And also with engineering, when you craft things, you're meant to unlock tinkers. Discover tinkers. I'm not getting that either. So, like, I've got to the point where I've been mining a lot today. Like, my level 80 druid is max mining. I'm flying around getting, all the mines in Oldham. But it's got to the point where it's like, well, there's no point me investing 30, 40 hours worth of mining just to max engineering when it's not actually working properly and I'm not going to get any of the benefits. So I've sort of given up on that. But tailoring's working kind of how it should. And then, yeah, I've been leveling my paladin, and then I've been doing heroics. I've done all the dungeons except for Grim Batol, because Grim Batol's either not open or not working. I don't know. I've not managed to find a way in there with the boys that we've been doing dungeons with. Heroics are not tuned. They're not working properly. So if you're on the beta yourself and you've done any heroics, don't think that that's how they're meant to be, because every heroic I've walked into, every boss that I've pulled, I could tell you straight away at least one thing that's not working as it should. Which, again, we're in the 80 to 85 leveling phase, but that's where the testing focus is. So Blizzard don't give a shit about the dungeons or heroics. But, like, my worry was people are going to go in heroics and be like, man, people say Cata dungeons are hard. This is easy. It's like, well, yeah, nothing's doing any damage on the bosses. The trash hits like a truck, and then the bosses have got, like, bombs that are meant to blow up that don't do any damage. We had a bit of a I had a bit of a nightmare in Stonecore, because the worm in Stonecore Heroic obviously is meant to have a visual warning. And there is kind of a visual warning, but you've really got to watch your own death back in a clip from Kick about 5 or 6 times to realise what that warning is. So, like, the level 85 content is a little bit scuffed at the moment. The 4 dots, Scotty, exactly, McNulty. But overall, again, like, I just can't wait to get my Paladin to 85. I'm then going to get my Disc Priest to 85. whilst obviously trying to I want to make sure that my mage that I'm gearing in heroics at the moment is obviously the character that I'm going to go into raids when the raids open. Like, even if they allow pre-made 85s with full pre-raid bis, I want to get the full pre-raid bis over the next few days, ready for the raids. I just can't get enough of it. Like, I feel like a kid at Christmas. It is like, it's so bugged and so fucked, but so fun.
Yeah, I've been able to fly inside of caves. Usually you get dismounted and all that stuff.
You can fly in instances
everywhere. Yeah, you can fly wherever you want to go right now. It's insane. It's fun. I love it. Like, I hope that doesn't get fixed. That'd be amazing to just fly around everywhere.
Yeah, we're like the druids that we've had with us in the heroics or even just dungeons. Yeah, they're just flying around the dungeon, and it's like, fucking hell.
It's beautiful. I checked. I was trying to level up skinning leatherworking before they opened the 80 to 85 bracket, but my template character has 375 jewel crafting, so I might have to work up some jewel crafting and do something if I get bored before they open up dungeons and raids and stuff.
Well, I've got loads of blue gems and green gems I can send you because I haven't got a jewel crafter at the moment, so, and I'm getting them from mining. So just tell me, and they're yours.
Hell yeah!
Cool. All right.
All right.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Oh, and to address, some people were asking like about my comments still up on the screen. It's not like a flowing chat on the screen. We just highlight messages on there. If you throw us a super chat, support the show, then that's going to get posted up there. If it's a question, we'll address the question that you have for us. As long as it's a super chat, we're trying to stay a little bit on topic here. So we do see some questions that go by. We might not be able to answer every single one of them. But yeah, we started the show off. Again, people were asking, what are they talking about? It's just a little icebreaker opener, the first 15, 20 minutes of the show, what we've been doing on the Cata beta. So if you're just now joining us, we're about to get into the Druid part of the show. And I think, unless Scotty has something different, we might be starting off with balance. And I guess that means I have to start talking a lot. I need to have a sip of my drink here before I get going.
Yeah, let's start with the slowest leveler. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
we'll
a
go
good
balance.
topic. Leveling speed. That's always something that gets asked. What do you think, Bearbus, since you opened up the door? What?
I got something after that. Yeah, let know after
Okay.
Bearbus, I've got something to just throw in there for another really popular question.
What's the better spec to level at? What's the faster spec, feral or balance?
Definitely feral.
I think I have to
A lot
agree.
faster
I hate to
until
agree,
80. Until 80. When you start getting mastery as a balanced druid, it just starts to go off. But as leveling as a feral, like I'm just like one or two shotting things up until like 80, and then it just slowly trickles down from there.
I will say there is something to be said for the fact that every time you log out as feral right now, you unlearn mangle and have to respec. So some of feral leveling speed is definitely because you want to do as much as you can while you're logged in, because you know you're going to have to respec again when you log out and back in the next day.
Yeah, but I got a lot of mine done in like 5-6 hour sessions, and I was getting like 2 or 3 levels by the time Go was getting like 1.
But I was streaming and I was also looking information up at the same time. I was listening to House on my third monitor over there.
Normal people ding and they get a level. Go dings and he goes back 2. I mean, I noticed that. But he was bugged.
I ding on one character and then I have to restart on another character. So I've actually leveled up 85 characters. I have one at each level right now for comparison's sake, for tooltips and everything.
Nice, that's how you do it.
I actually genuinely think leveling speed, like between feral and boomy, is actually a lot closer than people would think when you're in the cataclysm zones. Like, you have such good mana return and everything. Like you've got no downtime as a boomy, like, and you've got no downtime as feral. It's what you prefer. The one thing I would say is there is a big difference between going from Hyjal to Deep Hole. Like, when you're in Hyjal, you can pull as much as you want. You can two-shot mobs. You can like Moonfire, Sunfire, everything, and Starfall, and just like whatever. It just don't matter. It's like you're not going to die. Then you go to Deep Home and you pull one mob and it gets you to 50% health, and you're like, hang on, what just happened there?
I felt that going to Twilight Highlands today. I'd gotten used to like the Oldham mobs, and then I went to Twilight Highlands. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, these guys aren't elite, and their health gets way higher, like going from zone to zone.
And you're doing like a
crazy,
full...
but...
You're doing like a full PvE rotation, like you're fighting a boss, like on every mob that you're trying to kill. The 80 to 85 is like actually no, I take that back. The 83 to 85 is actually super challenging. Like, I do believe that it's actually that the mobs hit harder, the damage output that you're doing like feels so low, no matter what your gear is. And that was the point I wanted to bring up. Because everybody is like, I know it's not really Druid specific, but it kind of is. Like, if you're leveling a Druid on Wrath at the moment, or you're gearing on Wrath, and you're like, shit, like, I need to get full BIS ICC gear, I need to, like, do that. I definitely, after, you know, now leveling, well, starting to level multiple characters on the beta, would say it doesn't matter in the slightest. Because Chebs, in my chat, said, I'm sure it was Chebs, said actually it's quite counterproductive to get really well geared ready for Cata, because you get really well geared and then Hydral's a piece of piss and you're like blasting, then you get to Deep Home and it starts to feel like shit. Whereas if you're actually going in with less gear and you're using all the upgrades that you're getting through Hydral, you actually start to feel that power spike go up and up and up and up, and it feels a lot smoother. And I do agree with that, like 100%. But fuck me, yeah, it was a shock to the system. As a mage, being able to just pull everything with living bombs and just AoE in as fire and just killing everything. Then I got to Deep Home and died pulling 2 mobs.
Yeah.
I get asked a lot for the question.
Oh, yeah. Same here. Same here. And I always hate to say it, but sometimes I do have to say, yeah, Feral seems like it's feeling better. But if Mastery isn't working for Balance Druid, I didn't even test that, then that would be huge. That would help my whole leveling process out a lot. So I need to see if that's even working, because if not, then it might close that gap of what I thought Feral had the advantage of.
A lot of Mastery isn't working right now, but I keep telling people, like, if you're trying to gear an ICC, 82. 82 is when you're going to replace most, if not all, of your items, and that's when you should replace them because of the power spikes.
Yeah, and someone just said it in chat as well about stamina, and that was what I ended up doing on my mage when I was leveling. I was like, right, I'm going to lose 10 spell power, but I'm going to get 600 health. Yeah, I'll take that. You know, it was like, that's the point I was getting to, where I was actually upgrading, like replacing ICC 25 heroic gear for stam. Not for any of the offensive stats. It was just being able to take more of a slap. But yeah, it's been really interesting, because again, you know, I sit here or stand here in some cases on the podcast saying like, oh, I've played every Cata private server, I've leveled every class, I've done all this. Like, I have, but you've got to remember they're normally enhanced XP. So it's like by the time I finish Hydral, I'm 84. You know, it's like, then I'll go and do a bit in Oldham. I'm 85. I never really get to see the raw experience of like ×1 and the gear progression throughout 80 to 85. So it's been a big wake up call for me, even doing the beta, which is nice. You know, that's why it's felt fresh. But I just couldn't believe how painful 84 to 85 was. I wanted to stab myself in the eye with a fucking cocktail stick.
Usually you've got like 5 or 6 max level tunes at this point, and you've got 1. You're slacking, dude.
I think it's definitely important to remember that, like, even back in the day, when people are like, oh, it's only 5 levels, but they're just like, well, no, it's going to feel like 10 levels. So that's like probably why 84 to 85 feels like it's so bad, because it's the equivalent of what it would have been like to go from 88 to 90. But
yeah.
It's just, you know, only 1 level instead, but it's like equivalent of the XP of the 2 levels right before max level.
84 to 85 was pretty much 80 to 83. In terms of actual XP that you need. It was like 9 million, wasn't it? 9.4 million or something. And the level before that was like 5 million. It more or less doubles every time. And the XP, but the XP you're getting from the quests don't. You know, it's like you're still
They
getting
go up a little, but
yeah, but they're not doubling. You know, yeah, it's not you're getting 100k a quest. You're still getting like 55k a quest. Where in Hyjal you're getting, let's say, 35k a quest. You know, trust me. When it comes to live, I think people are going to be surprised just by that 84 to 85 jump because, crikey, yeah, it does feel slow.
It'll end up being one of those things where like you get to a certain point just from like questing and whatever, and then you're like, okay, I think I'm high enough level now to start doing normal dungeons, to start getting pre-bis that comes from normal dungeon, like the pre-heroic dungeon bis or whatever, and then like start getting that gear while you're also gaining XP. And then as soon as you ding 85, hopefully you'll have done the dungeons enough times to get the gear you need to do heroics, and then you can start getting your actual pre-bis.
That's what I done. And that's exactly what I done.
One of the go-to ways to do it for sure.
As soon as
I see too many people like waiting till 85 to do dungeons. Like they're gonna try and get XP out of the dungeons too, and then right when they hit 85, they're gonna try and be at a high enough eye level to be able to do heroic dungeons right away.
Yeah, so I done no dungeons until 84 because I knew that's where it's going to be the longest, and then done all the dungeons at 84 to get all of the quests done and hand all the quests in. And then by the time I'd done all the dungeons, hand all the quests in, done the new Ring of Blood, then it was like, all right, okay, so that's like half the level done. But then in terms of hours, that was a lot, because it was like I've just done like 5 dungeons and Ring of Blood. It weren't like a fast level, but it just made it feel less boring. And I would probably, I'm still not 100% sure on what my plan's going to be on live, to be fair. Like, I've toyed with the whole just like dungeon grinding to 83 and then going deep home for the rep and then straight to Twilight Highlands. But now having done it on ×1 and seeing how painful that last level is, I actually think getting everyone together at 84 and spending as much time in the normal dungeons to get everything that you want and be working on rep, remember, at the same time, it could be a good play, especially if raids ain't open, which we would assume they're not going to be open for a week or two anyway. So I love like this Druid podcast.
The fun part is like that initial like jump, like the very first couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks of a new expansion is always like it's a unique experience that you don't get from going like from one phase to another phase. Like getting leveled up and getting geared to start doing dungeons and then raids, like that progression is like one of the most fun parts of expansion releases for me, because it's like once you're already established at max level with the gear and stuff like that, and it's just a new raid tier coming out, you don't have to like regrind gear from scratch anymore. Like you're just going from one raid tier to the next. So like going from leveling and getting dungeon gear and then heroic gear and then getting into raids, like that progression's fun.
Yeah, and it's quite good as well in terms of currency. Like when you think about the fact that there's like heroics give more justice points, obviously. Like, but by doing normals, like even if you literally spent an entire level, everybody else is 85, and your little group of friends are still 84. Yeah, but they're doing, I don't know, whatever. They're just like roaming around the world, maybe doing professions. You can be spamming dungeons, getting justice points, which then when you ding, you can trade in for 3, 4, 6 gear, which then reduces the amount of time you're going to need to spend in heroics. You'll be getting rep at the same time. Like, I like the fact that 80 to 85, it is only 5 levels, and I don't know. I feel like there's a lot less pressure to actually rush the leveling. Like you can almost do what, like at 83 you can pretty much be actually working on pre-raid bis. You can be working on like getting gear for your heroics and shit before worrying too much about getting 85. Like that's what I done anyway. Like at 84 I was chilling. I was just like doing dungeons, working on rep, working on professions, and I feel like it kind of worked. I'm not saying that's the approach I'm going to take on launch, but that someone, who was it? Sorry, RPG Only For Me said, so it was 5.2 million from 83 to 84, and then 9.1 million, 84 to 85. That's such a ridiculous jump.
Yeah, you feel it because you'll get 4 or 5 quests done. Try to turn all 5 of those in at one time, and you might get a third, a quarter of a bar of XP if you've got the default UI like I do. The 20 bars, you're barely seeing that XP move up. Whereas in Hyjal, you turn in 5 quests, you're like, oh shit, there's 3 bars XP right there. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it is actually like what Table said. You know, it's basically 10 levels. It's still like 10 levels of XP, but just spread across 5 in a very uneven manner.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to talk about druids?
Let's do it. Let's get it. Talent calculator, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I've got the talents open in game. I could probably make it a bit bigger if I need, or put the talent calculator on. Yeah, whatever works. I mean, we'll start with balance. That might be a bit small. Let me get a talent calculator.
And once again, like we said last time, the Wowhead talent calc doesn't have like that splash screen when you open your talents in game that tells you like what you get when you pick your spec or whatever. Like the Wowhead talent calc doesn't have that stuff.
Let me see if Warcraft.
I'm just used to the way it looks.
Oh, Warcraft 7 does. Yeah, we can use Warcraft 7s. This does actually work. Cool. Okay. So what, you want to talk about balance? We'll go balance first.
Yeah.
We covered all the masteries, didn't we, in the first part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So mastery for balance increases our eclipse damage. So you get eclipse at level 10 right when you pick it. But the first tier, I end up getting maxing out all 3 of them. There's Nature's Grace, Starlight Wrath, and Nature's Majesty. I kind of did Nature's Majesty last as like a filler tier if I needed to later on to get points to get to the next tier. I'd go back, throw a point in there. So I started off reducing my cast time of Starfire and Wrath, maxing that out, and then getting Nature's Grace started. Moonglow.
When you say started, did you go 2? Yeah. So let's talk about the leveling path
all the way through. Sure. So Starlight Wrath 3, Nature's Grace 2, and then I went for Balance of Power to get the spell hit and a little bit of damage because I was just curious more so than not. But having the hit leveling is always good, especially if you're questing in zones that there's higher level mobs. So I like having that hit rating.
I'll tell you something now that I find really interesting, and it's not just been one boomy. It's been like fucking, I don't know, it feels like every boomy that ever joins the stream says the same thing. I've just copied my character over, hits bugged. I've got like 30% hit. Do you want to explain why, Go?
I saw a little bit about this on the Druid Discord. I think it's including our base spirit, but it's not supposed to. But Balance of Power gives you 1 hit rating per point of spirit. Like 1 spirit equals 1 hit, like rating, not like percent, but and low levels, it's really busted. I think I had like 27% or something at level, what was that, be like 15 or 17 when I got Balance of Power. My hit rating was insane. I was like, yo, this is sick. But I think that's a bug. So it might end up being a little bit different, a little bit lower.
Yeah, like Tooltip says, like spirit gained from items or effects. So yeah, it should only be the stuff you're getting from gear, not like you're saying your base spirit or whatever.
Yeah.
It shouldn't shouldn't be included.
But it's worth thinking about.
You should have that much hit percentage, yeah.
If you're prepping for Cata as a boomy, it does apply to all hybrid casters, but if you're prepping for Cata as a boomy, and you've got a lot of spirit gear now, or gear that's going to change into spirit because you might be using a few bits with MP5 on. Like if you've got a couple of items with MP5 on, that MP5 will translate to spirit. The spirit will translate to hit. You've now got like so much more hit while you're leveling that could be crit, or that could be haste, or that could be mastery, whatever. You know what I mean? But you can reforge the spirit off in the pre-patch, so you could drop a lot of it.
All right, so I think here's when Moonglow reduces the mana cost. You could throw points in there while you're leveling. I ended up putting some in there after like the mana regen was scuffed through the whole leveling process. I put some in there. I don't think we'll need it even when we're max level. So Moonglow I kind of skipped. So I think I just went back to Nature's Grace, put the point there, and then got the 2 Nature's Majesty, left Genesis alone.
Okay.
Mobs weren't living long enough for Moonfire and Insect Swarm's duration extension to matter. And I was pretty much just using Nourish to heal, so I didn't really need like the hots to last longer either. And then now we can get Moonkin form first. Euphoria helps you get to and from your eclipses faster. And it also gives you mana when you get into those eclipses and helps reduce your downtime going from mob to mob if you're getting eclipse procs.
I mean, 16%. 16%. I mean, that's massive.
Yeah, you see your mana bar jump every time that happens. Yeah. I like Typhoon, so I picked up Typhoon there, and then Shooting Stars is your dots have a chance to make Star Surge instant cast. So I'd go ahead and just put 2 points in Shooting Stars too, because the next tier is all utility. Alkin Frenzy doesn't give you mana back like it did in Wrath. I think it was like 1% of your base mana or something per second. I don't remember how it worked, but that mana return is gone. And I wasn't liking to get hit by melee that much. So I did put points in Alkin Frenzy and Gale Winds in case I got into a dungeon group. But even Solar Beam, strictly utility, I didn't miss not picking up Solar Beam. So Solar Beam to me is huge for PvP, but while leveling and stuff, even at end game, unless there's a certain boss that you need it, don't really need Solar Beam.
It's a big cooldown as well, isn't it? It's not like it's a reliable interrupt. You know, it's a...
Yeah.
It could be good for like if there's any ad fights where there's like caster ads or something like that. You could drop a Solar Beam just to make it easier to get them all grouped up and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I only had 2 out of 3 Alkin Frenzy, 2 out of 2 Gale Winds, and then that 5th point was maxing out that Shooting Stars. And then now you can get down to Treant, Sunfire, Earth, and Moon. Whatever preference
all of
you have
these,
for
all of
those.
they're hard, and they're hard
yeah.
though. Do you want to talk through them? Start with Dream State.
Yeah. Well, Dream State, I got Dream State again just because the mana issues for the beta with the regen not working too well, but you can really feel when you have the points in Dream State. So Innervate gives you baseline 20% of your maximum mana, and then you can increase that an extra 30%, so half of your mana with 2 points in Dream State. And then Treant is exactly the same. That's one of the few spells that didn't really change. It still summons 3 Treants, 3-minute cooldown. The range, I guess, changed. If you want to really nitpick, it used to be like 36 yards. Now it's 40.
Oh, big buff.
Yeah, I know. Huge buff. Earth and Moon kind of stayed the same too, I guess. But it has Wild Mushroom included in that, which I haven't got to test that part of it. But Wrath and Starfire does, what is it? Increases the spell damage taken by the mob by 8% for 15 seconds. And then it also increases your spell damage by 2%.
I just want to address a comment, Ian. So at the moment, just to be clear, in case you've just joined, we're talking more like at the moment leveling. So we're talking like goes a leveling path. You know, obviously the mobs are not lasting long enough for him to need extra seconds on dots. We're talking from 1. Yeah, we're not saying 80 to 85. We're talking like a leveling path from basically when you ding 10 and 15 to whatever.
Yes.
69 is the last point, isn't it? 69 is the last point now. So yeah, it's not like this is not a PvE build yet. We will look at like proper end game PvE, but this is more like if you was going to level as a boomy in the pre-patch, you're doing a troll druid because you don't want to faction change a druid. What are the talents that are going to be important? And yeah, I would agree with him that Genesis is not important as a leveling talent. Otherwise, I'd have picked him up and said, "Fuck you, go. What do you know?"
I think we're at that point now where I did go back and start putting points in Genesis. So I never put points in Fungal Growth. It's a pure.
So what have you? Did you get Treant? So you got Treant, Sunfire, and Earth and Moon, yeah?
Yep, I got those, and then I did put 2 points in Dream State.
Okay. No, so you didn't
And
go into
then-
Lunar Shower? Because I would have went into
I
Lunar
did.
Shower.
Yeah, you can go into Lunar Shower. I haven't really. I don't know if that effect is working. I don't think I noticed if it's actually granting the energy. So maybe that's why, like, I just felt like Lunar Shower was okay. It was cool if you're pulling multiple mobs. That really slowed down 80 to 85. So it had a little bit of value lower levels when you could pull 6 mobs and then like Typhoon, Hurricane them down. But the whole energy aspect of it, I haven't got to do too much with.
Okay.
So yeah, you just fungal growth though. I did not fungal growth. So I did end up getting 3 out of 3 Lunar Shower, and then you can throw 2 points up into Genesis, and then now we can get Starfall. My path was something like that.
Okay, because Lunar Shower is actually insane. It really is. Like, if it's working, it is absolutely mental. Like being able to just multi-dot everything, and it does so much direct damage, and then you're innovating yourself. Like you can just destroy everything.
Yeah, and it ties in with Genesis really well because you're dotting, so you kind of want those to last longer if you're only applying the dot and then switching to something else and not going to like single target. Then yeah, like those talents really far apart, but synergize really well.
Yep. Okay, so we're now down to Starfall, and you would be.
Yeah.
I can see you got 10 points left, so I'm guessing at the moment you would be. Would you be 75? Is it that late?
69.
Yeah, because it
according
should be
to
69, the
one.
last point, shouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to the resto tree.
Oh, cool. Because
We're-
80 to 85, you get a point every level. Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. So top right of the resto tree, we got Heart of the Wild, increases your intellect by 2% per point. So we're going to get 6% of our int, which is going to increase the spell power. And then Natural Shapeshifter. And Natural Shapeshifter on its own doesn't really give you that much, but it unlocks your ability to get Master Shapeshifter below it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what? Spell damage by 4%.
4%, yeah.
And then now you've got 4 points that you can fill in whatever utility you wanted. If you wanted to have that 3rd point in Genesis, that's where I went. You could get your Solar Beam, max out Alchemy Frenzy, wherever you want to go.
Yeah, so we're saying you got 3 points left. I'd say getting that extra point in Genesis is absolutely needed. Like we're talking now, you're on the home stretch. You're going to be going into heroics once you've done this. Me personally, maximum mana.
Yeah, Führer. You can get 3 points in Führer if you want.
Even Perseverance, to be fair, just for reduced damage taken. I would take Solar Beam. Like, you got to have Solar Beam.
Or you can Blessing of the Grove, increase your Moonfire's damage. That's the top left in Resto Tree.
Oh, shit, yeah. You're going to want 2 in that. Yeah, that would more or less be it, to be fair. The only 2 I don't like is Alchemy Frenzy. Like, I'd argue that they don't need to be there. I would actually take Fungal Growth over Alchemy Frenzy. That's what I would do.
You like the slow?
Yeah. From once you've got to the point where you've got mushrooms, yeah, then that's nice control. You're gonna have slows and an AOE silence. You've got everything that's gonna increase damage. Like you're not.
And if mobs leave the slow area, you can just Typhoon it back into it.
Exactly. I mean, attacks done while in Moonkin form. A chance to go into a frenzy. I don't know. I'd prefer the control, but I suppose it would come down to personal preference. You could go Alchemy Frenzy, or
it depends too, because like that slow is a lot less useful if you have Hurricane glyphed with the move speed slow on Hurricane, because they probably don't stack, and the Hurricane one is more slow.
Yeah, it's just the thing that you can do that's nice with Fungal Growth is you can actually stagger your mushrooms, so you can almost put them in a line and then create a complete path of slowing effect. If you needed to have something slowed running towards you, it's nice. I do like it, but again, it's utility. It's not gonna add any damage. In fact, if you use it like that, you're losing damage because some of the mushrooms might not hit. But
oh yeah,
but it's still nice. So I'd say probably fight dependent. You know, like what you would use.
Just one more thing on that lunar shower was it lasts 3 seconds. So you use your moonfire on one target. You have one GCD where you can do something else, and then that next GCD would have to be another moonfire to be able to get the stack to keep going up. That caught me off guard. A lot of our stuff is like 12, 15 second, even 20-second duration, like debuffs and stuff like that, and buffs. And then lunar shower, you have to use it back to back.
Yeah, but you would as well, because it's nice where you're basically spamming dots and putting down mushrooms and blowing them up, spamming dots, putting down mushrooms, blowing them up, like rinse and repeat. Again, I'm a big fan of the boomy AoE rotation in Cata, because it just feels like there's so much going on until you're at the mushroom part where you stood there and you're like, I'm doing nothing, I'm placing 3 mushrooms. And then you blow them up and you're like, oh shit, I've just done like 100k damage. That's nice.
I know, I can't wait. I got to figure out a keybind for that. That's a new ability. So I got to figure out like a bind for placing them and a bind to detonate them.
Yeah, but I would say like that, how it is at the moment on stream, and there's like a couple of points spare. You've got all the damage that you need, you've got all the key talents that you need, and then you've got a couple of points to put like wherever you want. You don't need Moonglow. Like I'd rule Moonglow out completely. You're going to be fine on mana using Innovate on yourself, and like mana is kind of a non-issue for boomies, especially at 85. Like it starts to become a non-issue. So it would be between Alchem Frenzy and Fungal Growth. Cool. And then
did you want to do glyphs while we're on the talent calculator? Because we did kind of already cover them.
They're not actually working on this one that I'm looking at. There are no glyphs.
Oh, okay.
But what are you using? Because I can put that on.
I mean, I didn't even level with any, honestly.
No, I'm still using none on any of my characters.
Yeah. Like they're not that impactful for leveling. You know, like you can get your first one, I don't even remember what it is, like level 10, but then you have to, or maybe it's even 20.
I'm gonna get a drink while you talk through the glyphs.
Yeah. And then it's like 70 is your next one or something, or 50, I don't know. But the level gap in between is like, I wasn't focused on getting glyphs.
20, 50, 75.
Yeah, there you go. So like Insect Swarm is one, Moonfire, Starfire, or Star Surge, and then there's Wrath. So we've got 5 options, and I wasn't really dotting too much, so I did have Wrath, and then the other 3 all involve dots. Starfire is extending the duration of Moonfire. I was using a little bit of Moonfire though, so I guess it would have been nice at 55 to have had that glyph, but increases periodic damage of your Moonfire by 20%. Like it's nice, but it's not gonna change your downtime that much by having them. I wish they were more impactful. And then that was the major ones. What do we got? Focus was one I was interested in. Starfall, and then I think it was Glyph of Rebirth. Those are the 3 that I ended up going with, but you can kind of change those around too. There's a couple other ones like
So what's the base cooldown on Typhoon?
20 seconds.
Oh,
yeah, you can reduce that by 3, right?
Yeah, so what's 17? That's like
Yeah, you hardly notice it. The only time I used that was when I was like AoE grinding at the start of Wrath. There was that Utgard keep. I had that on so that I could kite the mobs and like dungeon grind in there.
The thing is, with most glyphs are all just like, most prime glyphs, and I say most, I know there's some that are not, but most prime glyphs are just like 5% extra damage with this ability, 3% extra damage with this ability. You know, they're not particularly exciting. But when there's 9 of
They're
them,
nice for raids, but yeah.
yeah. I've not had a single prime glyph on any of my characters on the beta yet. Cool.
But
All
yeah,
right. Is there any?
getting the
Go on.
getting the 30-second of a Starfall with Glyph of Starfall as a major glyph, then that's one of the more impactful ones, I think. Having
Yeah, it's kind
less
of crazy
downtime
that
on
it's
one.
only a major.
Yeah. All right, I'm done with glyphs and talents. Whew.
Anything you want to like touch on in terms of Boomy though? General play style, like gripes, things you like, things you don't like before we move on to Feral?
Or even like how it changes from like Wrath Boomy, because
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's a
the
good
equip
shout.
system in Cata is like so different.
So when I was leveling up, it was I wasn't really focused on whether I was casting Wrath or Starfire. A lot of times, I like to Wrath a couple times because I feel like I'm getting damage, like I'm preloading damage, and it's like before I get into combat. And if you Starfire, then as soon as that cast is done, you're in combat. So I would like Wrath 2 times and then Root, and then maybe put some dots up and stuff. But if you actually focus on your Eclipse while you're leveling and you're getting that mana back after you have Euphoria, it's going to make a world of a difference. Once I started to finally focus on that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to cast Wraths, I need to cast Starfires. It's that was a big change because it's not RNG based anymore, really. You could argue it is once you got what is it? Yeah, Euphoria, because it has a chance to double the amount of lunar or solar energy you get. So that's a little RNG there, but yeah, focusing on that was a big change for me. But it did feel kind of the same. You know, we got Typhoon, we got Treants, Wrath, Starfire, Dots. It was all kind of the same. The new animation for Hurricane looks cool.
That's a
I didn't get
weird
to
thing,
cast
weird thing
Hurricane
to
that
enjoy.
much, but hey, it's the little things sometimes. Another change was the remove corruption. It now nullifies 1 curse, 1 poison, whereas it used to be separate. You could cleanse a curse, or you could have like abolish poison. So not having abolish poison feels kind of weird. It's only 1 poison at a time now.
Yeah. But then obviously, if you're resto, you can remove all of that and magic. So they sort of like made it so like no one healer was needed for one job, if you know what I mean.
The innervate change was kind of weird too. Especially without Genesis, it didn't really feel like it did that much, which felt kind of bad. So it felt a lot better once I got the 2 or Dream State. Sorry.
Dream State.
Yeah. Heals while leveling up felt terrible, but I really don't know how bugged heals are. I hope it's somewhat bugged, or it was early on and then it got fixed a little bit or something, but heals was a struggle.
Yeah, no, I see. I don't think it is bugged. Heals just healing is very much like big health pools, low heals. Like things very quickly spiral out of control if you're not like, it's not a reactive job to be a healer anymore. It is very proactive. You know, it's not like, oh, this person's taking damage, it's whack-a-mole. Their health's gone down, quick, top it up. That one's gone down, quick, top it up. Like, it's not like that. It's like you're planning ahead and you're trying to use like smaller, slower heals to just like predict the damage that's coming in and like control the fight. When you get behind, there's none of these like godlike AoE heals that top everyone off anymore. Like there's just no such thing. So all the heals in general just feel like they do less.
Thorns, since it's now
Thorns is great.
Like a cooldown, I really felt it lower level, and then as I got to 60, 70, 80 and further on, I started to notice the damage a little bit less, but especially 1 to 60 or whenever you get it, I think you get it, I don't know, level 4, 6 or something. You can really see the the damage of Thorns. It's kind of cool. Our roots no longer do damage, so that was a weird one, because it used to be kind of nice to root something and know that it was going to be taking a little bit of like rotting damage, and then you could kill something else and then go back to it. So that was a weird change. It also didn't tag the mob either because it didn't do damage, I guess. So keep that in mind. And then we've also got a way to dispel enrage effects, which we haven't had with Soothe. I started to see debuffs glowing on like mobs that I was killing, and I was like, why is it glowing? I can't get rid of that. And it's because Soothe. It
used to be Soothe Animal. It's the same spell. Yeah. It's just like instead of it reducing the aggro radius of a beast or dragonkin, now it dispels enrage, which is interesting. It's another little bit of utility for us. It's like
that was a cool
different utility though, because like it was still utility to be able to like, because you could use Soothe Animal to like skip mobs in certain dungeons or raids or whatever, but now we can dispel enrages, which is nice because now we don't have to worry about whether or not we have a trank shot or anesthetic poison or whatever.
Yeah, and then you used to be able to at some point in Wrath get hit out of Fairy Fire, but there's no longer spell hit with Fairy Fire at all. And now Fairy Fire can stack up to 3 times. So leveling on my own, I didn't really ever cast Fairy Fire. I sometimes if it was like an elite, I would Fairy Fire with my treants, or if there was like an NPC mob attacking it too, then I'd Fairy Fire for the NPC so that I didn't have to worry about aggro right off the rip. But yeah, for the most part, Fairy Fire, I just left it alone. And I think that covers it for Boomy.
And just to address the guys in chat, like apparently the hills. Obviously, my druid on the beta, all I've been doing is mining on it. It's max mining. It's my farmer, like nothing else. But yeah, a lot of people are saying that the hots are really, really scuffed. So I just wanted to show an example, like on this particular druid, I'm in full resto gear. I am actually in feral spec. It's not really. I don't want to go resto because I don't want all the plus healing, and I've not got a boomy spec. So, but we'd just assume that feral doing it, boomy doing it. Boomy's not going to get any bonuses to heals in there, so it would be similar. And to say that I've got what like 126k health, a rejuve tick is doing like what 2.3k. So that's what I meant. I mean, it's still not a lot. Yeah, I'm not saying it should be doing 19 when you've got over 100,000 health, but it's still like a minuscule amount. It's not like the heals are like chunking. When these hots are ticking, it's not like you're going to see your bar start going boom, 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 I'm full. The heals in general are just a lot lower. Like even my regrowth, which is really expensive, only done 6k. 6k out of 126k. It's all about keeping ahead and keeping in front and let people's hots do their job. And
my rejuve is doing 584 and I've got 3800 spell power.
584. I've got, what have I got on here? I got 7.6k. I got 7.6k spell power and
twice as much, yeah.
Yeah, and what did you say you was doing? Your rejuve?
Rejuvenation is hitting for 584.
Yeah, and mine's doing like 2.3k. Yeah, and that's and you're in boomy, I'm in feral. But I've got double. Yeah. If you expected it to do double, it's still not doing enough on the beta then. But my point was not like, oh, it's bugged, it's not bugged. Like that really weren't. Yeah, I'm just saying. Don't expect to do a heal and be like, oh, I'm full health after one heal, because you won't be. As a holy paladin, you'll do a holy light and your health will go up by about 5%. It's like
I was having to cast like 7 healing touches to get from like 10% to max. It was ridiculous how many heals I had to cast on myself to see my health bar move at all, and then my bar is gone at that point.
And then you innervate yourself and barely get any mana back.
It was struggle. Yeah.
Right, shall we move on to feral then? I mean, if you're happy with boomy, I think feral's going to be interesting, and we need to address the guys that were talking about the glyph first of all, because I've got my thoughts on it, and I don't think it's going to be there. but they're also, you know, along the lines of, well, if it's not there, that means bear weaving's back on the table. And I would say if you're gearing correctly, bear weaving would never be on the table. But so maybe we should open with that discussion first before we even talk about the talents.
Well, there's two things there, right? There's the glyph and there's bear weaving.
Yeah. So we'll start with a glyph first.
Yeah.
Then.
Well, the glyph's not going to be in. Like, it's such a huge power spike for us at 85. Like, I don't think that it's going to be in. It needs to be balanced a different way. If they try and do something for feral balancing, they need to balance it a different way and not put the glyph back in.
Can you say what the glyph is really quick in case there's somebody that's watching that they're looking at Cata for the first time, they didn't play Wrath Classic?
So the glyph for us now is every time we cast Fairy Fire, we get an Omen of Clarity proc, which then allows us to use a free ability in feral form. And it's working on the beta currently, working. It's not supposed to be in the beta because it's not part of the original build at all. And the only way it does work properly on the beta is if you get rid of your old one and then put a new one in, but it doesn't actually make it so you learn it. So you have to have a new one every single time you go to learn that ability. And that's one, not properly working for a Cata. And two, like, it should not be in the game. It's such a huge power spike for us that if they kept it in the game, we go to from like bottom of the middle of the pack to maybe like bottom of top, maybe for first tier.
There's like a couple of things to consider also. Like, there's like the whole philosophical argument about like whether or not we should have it in, like, you know, all that stuff. And then there's stuff as simple as like you open up the glyph page. We were talking about this a little earlier before we went live. You open up the glyph page and it's not on the list. Like, all of the glyphs that you can learn are all on the side. It's not on the list at all. So like Bearbus is saying, like, when you normally any other glyph, you right click it and you learn it and you just know it. You don't have to have an individual glyph every time you want to put it on. So like, it's not in the list. And also, when you do equip it, there's no actual icon for it. All of the other glyphs have an icon when you equip them in the glyph pane. So like glyph of shred, for example, turn into glyph of bloodletting. When you equip that onto your glyph pane, you see a shred icon in that slot. But when you equip glyph of open and clarity, it's like a cogwheel icon, like similar to the engineering icon, which means there's no icon for it, so it doesn't exist. So that could mean a couple of things. Like, that could just mean no, it's not in, and it's just an oversight that they haven't deleted it yet. Or it could just be that they are going to keep it in and they haven't added an icon for it yet. Like, there's so much stuff that's missing or incorrectly working on the beta right now that could be the case, that they just haven't added the icon yet. Or it could be that they haven't added the icon because it's not supposed to be in the game. Like, it could mean sort of either one. But I do agree that, like, I don't think it belongs in Cata. Like, I don't think they should have it in there. I agree with what Bearbus said about how if they want to do tuning to feral to increase the power of feral or increase the damage we're doing, that they should do it a different way other than adding the glyph. Because the playstyle of feral and Cata is a lot of fun, and adding glyph of omen, forcing us to hit omen every 6 or fairy fire every 6 seconds detracts from the funness of the Cata feral playstyle. It would be a shame, I think, for us to essentially ruin what is a fun playstyle because of glyph of omen and clarity. It's my hot take for the day.
Yeah, I just don't think you'd have the time.
No, you really won't have the time to use it, and that's another thing, is that it's part of the rotation that is going to take away more DPS, that they need to take it out of the game in the first place.
Yeah, because there's a big change for feral. Like, haste is the biggest change. You know, at the moment where you're feeling energy starved a lot, once you start getting decent levels of haste. This is why I don't think bear weaving will be a thing, because the haste regen on your energy is fucking huge. You know, it's not like it's big. Once you get to tier 12, tier 11 not so much. But
right. But bear weaving will be a thing for a little bit while we're off tanking, but it's only going to be going for the off tank role.
Oh,
like, in my opinion, the people that are thinking about it currently in the Druid Discord are just like, overthinking it and overcomplicating it. It's going to be part of the rotation, but only when you have to go to off tank.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that, like my spec on this particular druid is exactly that. I'm a druid that can go in and I can tank, I can feral, like Kitty, like both really well. And if I'm needed to go bear and taunt, I can go bear and taunt. But there's absolutely no benefit to staying in bear. It's not like you're waiting so long, to be able to shred. So you're going in bear to kill that time while your energy regens. Once you've got decent levels of haste, you're not waiting. It's a very, very dynamic playstyle playing a Kitty. Not in pre-rate. I would almost say that actually while you're doing heroics, and you're maybe even getting gear from normal raids, maybe bear weaving could yield a little bit more damage. But that would be about it. Once you actually start getting decent gear and your energy bar's moving.
The whole reason like bear weaving was a thing in Wrath is because we had dead time in the rotation. Like we'd run out of energy, we'd be either just sitting there waiting for energy regen, so we just went to bear to do stuff in the meantime. With the amount of haste that we're going to be able to get with, just haste that is available on gear in the first place, and whatever reforging we're going to do, like we should have enough haste that we're not going to be waiting as long. Like if we could do any bear weaving, we'd be like maybe 1, maybe 2 abilities in bear form before going back to cat. But once we get enough haste, we won't have time to go to bear because our energy will regen fast enough to the point where once we get to bear, do something and get back, we would have capped energy. So that's the whole.
And also the Omen of Clarity procs too for that. Like there's going to be so many more Omen of Clarity procs because of our haste. Like we're just going to be stuck in cat form more often than being in bear form.
Yeah. I think one of the other things, this is worth mentioning too, like Omen is different in Cata than it is in Wrath. In Wrath, in cat form, you only get Omen procs from auto attacks. In Cata, it's the other way around. You get Omen procs from abilities, and then if you're feral specifically, you can also get Omen procs from auto attacks. So in Cata, feral can get Omen procs off of everything we do, not just auto attacks. Whereas in Wrath, it's just auto attacks. So like our Omen proc chance, like the amount of Omen procs that we're going to be getting is going to go up no matter what anyway. And in original Cata anyway, normal like Fairy Fire Feral had a chance to proc Omen, without a glyph or anything like that. In original Cata and in original Wrath too. I don't know why Wrath Classic we couldn't get Omen procs off of Fairy Fire Feral. Like that was something that was wrong with Wrath Classic. But in original Cata, Fairy Fire Feral did work occasionally to proc Omen of Clarity. It wasn't guaranteed every time like how it is with the glyph, but it had a chance to proc the same way that all the rest of our abilities had a chance to proc Omen. So everything we do in cat form in Cata will give us a chance to get an Omen proc. So like that combined with the amount of haste that we're going to have, our energy regen, we shouldn't need Glyph of Omen, and we eventually won't be able to bear weave because we won't have a chance to go to bear form because there's enough to do in cat form already.
Yeah, the whole time you've been talking, I've just been spamming Mangle, and it's literally, we're talking. I'm in like tier 11/tier 12. Got some bits from Firelands, like full epic. Like but mostly I'd say like tier 11 normal and sort of Firelands normal on this druid, and I literally, I can spam Mangle quite consistently. If I was to switch to bear, I would have missed a Mangle and cat. And that's without even factoring in Tiger's Fury. I'm getting like I'm literally just mangle. Might be like maybe 2 seconds between one mangle and the next occasionally, but then with the clear casting procs, the energy regen starts, and this is in fairly shite gear in the grand scheme of things. It gets to a point where it's like just disgusting. You ain't got time to think, let alone fucking go in bear and start trying to press abilities. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I don't know if you've actually tested it either, Table, but because I don't know as far as like your leveling for 80 to 85, but Fairy Fire does proc Omen of Clarity currently on the beta.
Yeah,
without the glyph.
Yeah.
Yeah, without the glyph. So like if you've got the dead time, you'll still use Fairy Fire because it's a free GCD. It doesn't cost you anything. Like, and you've got that extra couple seconds where you're just sitting there auto attacking anyway. So use it. Like it procs Omen to Clarity. Like you said, like everything we do procs it.
Yeah, it's the original Wrath playstyle.
Procs back to back.
Yeah, the original Wrath playstyle was Fairy Fire, Feral, and would proc Omen of Clarity.
Yeah,
without a glyph.
Wrath Classic did.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's like not working properly on the beta right now. One of those things somebody in chat was talking about how clear casting in beta works like how it does in Wrath. There's a lot of shit that's like that too. Like for example, there's still weapon skills in Cata. Like if you go on Cata beta right now and open up the skill pane, it still says weapon skills in there. That's not supposed to be in there. Like those go away in Cata. I can't find mastery anywhere on my character sheet at all in the Cata beta. So there's a bunch of shit about the beta that's not currently working correctly or isn't being displayed correctly or whatever. Like there's a bunch of shit that's wrong. We're just talking about the way that things worked in original Cata and the way that they're supposed to be working in Cata like classic. But some of that stuff isn't currently working right now in the beta because there's a lot of stuff that's not working currently on the beta.
Yeah.
And, Omen for Boomy, it is working how it's supposed to for Boomkin, I think, because the first part of it, your damage spells and attacks have a small chance to cause you to enter clear casting. The clear casting state reduces the mana, rage, or energy cost of your next cast time damaging or healing spell or offensive feral ability by 100%. So like I can't use a clear casting proc from Omen and apply Moonfire or Insect Swarm or use it for Typhoon or Hurricane. I can really only use it for like Wrath and Starfire. So it's kind of like a hybrid. It's working as it is in Wrath, but it's also working how it's supposed to in Cata. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of frustrating though for things to not be for certain things to be working right, but certain things not be working right. Like I was saying this a little bit before we went live, but like the reason why I haven't been playing a ton on the beta is because the stuff that I want to test isn't working properly. So it's like there isn't a lot of reason for me to play right now because
but we're testing stuff for the masses, making sure the game works for everyone. We're not selfish fucking bastards like you know. Like we're slogging through quests and putting ourselves through physical pain to make sure that it works for everyone. And you're like, oh, cat don't work properly. I'm not logging on then.
Yeah, I'm gonna play Baldur's Gate instead. Bye. I'll play a Druid and Baldur's Gate. Oh shit, they suck there too. Fuck.
But the one thing I will say about Feral
quest I've done.
That's a decent amount.
542 because it was a template, so.
Oh, okay,
I assume that number's correct. 542 quests. It's been a lot, and that's just 80 to 85.
Yeah, that is a lot. But the thing I'll say about like druids are in. Okay, like take all the bugs aside. Like we know things are going to change. We know things are not working properly. But I play with Anti. I don't know if Anti's watching, but Anti, you're a fucking boss, mate. He's a feral druid, and he fucking pumps. So like I just want to put out there now, the Boomy, which is Tom Doddy, pumps. Like I've not been in a dungeon with a druid so far with the guys that I play with and been like, oh dear, that sucks. No, we're talking like the Anti on his feral, on more on AOE. Like swipe is disgusting, obviously with the energy regen, with Tiger's Fury, Berserk, everything. Like you know they're pulling numbers that I can't see any other class getting anywhere near on trash when you're doing dungeons. I'm talking like 60, 70k DPS, which an arms warrior, yes, you would see an arms warrior do that, but like it's disgusting. When you've got him doing like 60, 70k, and then there's me maybe in second doing 15k. It's like, oh, that sucks. I wish I was feral.
That's because cat swipe is 360 now.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Like ferals are so powerful. Yeah, in dungeons, they're so powerful. Single target is still really, really good as well. But you see it drop off. You like I watch him burst to let's say 20, 25k, which is still really high. in questing gear at level 85, like that's still really high. But then it very quickly, you see Berserk go, and then it very quickly starts dropping off. But it's, I honestly think Druids are going to be in a good place. Like, no matter what spec, Boomy, Feral, like, they're really fun to play, and we ain't even touched Resto.
I think when it comes to,
is it details that's working?
I'm using Recount. My details don't work.
Recount?
Yeah, I've got a details that apparently does work. Go on, Bevis.
I haven't gotten it to work. I haven't gotten details to work.
No, me neither.
Perfectly fine. It's recounts always worked for the betas for me. Like, even the newer ones still work.
Well, someone from the stream sent me a working details, and he's like, "Well, it worked for me. It doesn't work for me." I'm like, "You watch it. Like, what am I doing differently to you? I'm running in and I'm hitting something, and nothing's showing up. It's like, not working for me, but it's working for you. It must be me then. It's a me problem." But then I put Recount on, and Recount works. But then Recount's very unreliable, and it always has been. Like, Recount is historically dog shit.
Which is like quite ironic for a name like that.
Yeah, I know, but it is pretty bad. But it's nice. I like during the beta, or at least like gauging something, even if it's not super accurate. We're still like being able to gauge what people are doing in dungeons, what they're doing in heroics, what they're doing burst wise, sustain wise. Again, even if it's not mega accurate, we're still getting some sort of idea. And yeah, I've been mega impressed by Druids in general. And I'm playing Arcane. Like, Arcane is obviously disgusting if the boss dies in 30 seconds. If it lasts longer than that, it's like, Hearthstone.
So I guess we could talk a little bit about like some of the cool stuff that Feral gets in Cata that we don't have in Wrath, or even just like some stuff that changes a little bit too, because some of the stuff is pretty cool. We already mentioned how like cat swipe is 360 now, which is nice. It's a nice little, not having to line up the perfect strike zone is pretty cool. There's some stuff that we get from talents that's kind of rad. Like after playing like an enhancement shaman or a fury warrior and getting used to having flurry, it's pretty cool that cats get fury swipes now. It's in the second row of the feral tree. When you auto attack in cat or bear, you have a 15% chance. This is with 3 points in the talent. 15% chance to cause a fury swipe, dealing 310% weapon damage. This effect cannot occur once every 3 seconds. So it's not like a huge thing, but it's kind of neat. Like, it's cool. Instead of like just pure auto attack damage, like this can just happen every 3 seconds. It's pretty cool. And then and I don't think haste reduces that cooldown window. I think it's just always 3 seconds.
It's always 3 seconds.
Yeah. So no matter what, there's a cap on the amount of times you're going to be able to get that to proc. And it is only a 15% chance to proc. So like in theory, if you have more haste, you should see it proc closer to every 3 seconds than otherwise. So that's cool. Stampeding Roar is sick, sick as hell. And we have our the talent Stampede affects that. So the Stampede talent is tied to Fairy Fire or to Feral Charge. So the Stampede talent increases your melee haste by 30% after you use Feral Charge Bear for 8 seconds. So that makes it nice for a little bit of extra snap threat from your auto attacks in Bear, which is pretty cool. And your next Ravage temporarily does not require stealth or have a positioning requirement for 10 seconds after using Feral Charge Cat and costs 100% less energy. So like Ravage is actually not shit anymore. Like, it actually makes sense to open with a Ravager on fights. You Feral Charge in, use a free Ravage that doesn't require you to be behind the target or stealthed. And then the energy that you pay for Feral Charge Cat, does it still cost energy in Cat? I didn't even look. Either way,
it still costs energy, but also you should talk about predatory strikes too, about Ravage.
Yeah, true. But the point I was going to make is, even though you pay energy for Feral Charge Cat, by the time you get in there and use the Ravage, and then the GC ends from that, you'll be back at
you're on full energy.
Anyway, so
yeah. And then now you've got Savage Roar up for nothing. Savage Roar's up, for free.
Yeah. And then that ties in Bear was saying, talking about predatory strikes. This is the first tier. We're already used to predatory strikes. We have that in Wrath. It works a little differently in Cata. Works a lot differently in Cata. It now increases the critical strike chance of Ravage by 50% on targets that are at or above 80% health. So essentially, if you have a decent amount of crit, your opening Ravage after you feral charge will probably crit. It'll almost always be a crit, which is pretty nice. So those tie together pretty well. It's this nice little synergistic relationship there between predatory strikes and Stampede. So that's pretty cool. Like an actual reason to use Ravage, aside from leveling. Like the only other time that I ever really used Ravage was while I was leveling and something that I thought I was going to one-shot or whatever. Other than that, Ravage doesn't really get used that often in Wrath or beforehand. But now in Cata, it's actually a good ability to use. There's even applications that you could have in certain fights where you have to target swap, or if there's like not even target swap, just like the loss of uptime type of stuff, where you have to like move out of melee range, you can feral charge back in, get a free Ravage, stuff like that, which is pretty nice. Then there's stuff like there's a talent Endless Carnage, which is third from the bottom, just reduces or increases the duration of Rake. You get 2 more ticks out of Rake just from that talent, which is kind of cool. Makes it so you have to cast Rake less often. Like what's bad about that?
And Savage Roar.
Water.
And Savage Roar. Yeah, so both.
Yeah, Savage Roar. Yeah, 8 seconds for Savage Roar.
Yeah. I'm looking at the fucking, I guess the Warcraft Tavern one doesn't have Savage Roar in there.
It's pulverized as well, but like I only think, like my opinion, again, Bearbis table, obviously feel free to correct me if you think otherwise. I think unless you're a main tank, like if you're a main tank in your guild as a Feral Druid, which is going to be rare, but if you're a main tank, you're going to take Pulverize. I think if unless you are the big boy main tank of the guild, there's no reason to take Pulverize.
Well, there's multiple different talent builds for what each feral is going to be doing, but it like you said, Scott, Pulverize only for main tank. Like you're gonna have open GCDs as a main tank. You take the Pulverize so you can restack your Lacerate, even though it's only 3 stacks on Lacerate now in Cata instead of the 5.
Yeah. Cool,
Yeah,
carry
like
on.
the
So
Feral excels at the off tank role. Like that's kind of its like niche in Cata, is because like that's we're the only tank class that can go DPS for the part of the fight that we're not actively tanking, and we do so much more damage than the other tank specs because our gear is almost the same. Like our gemming is a little different, reforging might be a little different too. It'll be similar, but there will be differences for sure. Obviously, if you have tank trinkets on, that's not going to be as much damage as if you were able to wear DPS trinkets. But on certain fights, or maybe if it's just like a taunt swap, you could probably wear DPS trinkets and be fine. You might even be able to just wear DPS gear and be fine. But we're easily the highest damage off tank, and it's not even close. So that's like, depending on what talent build you go, like if you're going to be in that role, like doing some warden stuff, like getting a bunch of warden parses essentially, there's definitely a different talent build that you would use for doing that than you would use for pure DPS and even for main tanking.
So that's what I see as the big difference. Like the big separating difference for me will be from Firelands onwards, when you can do a really high output haste build. Like a real high output haste build then makes you a DPS. That's how I see it. Whereas if you're going like a real high mastery, like crit mastery is like the standard. That will be what I'd say 90% of druids will be doing. Like 90% of feral druids will be going for crit and mastery, which then actually makes it really, really amazingly viable to off tank in exactly the same gear. Because mastery is going to increase your bleed damage when you're in cat. It's going to increase the amount you absorb when you're in bear. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's a defensive stat and an offensive stat. If you go high haste, now we're talking it's a threat stat in bear, which you're not going to have threat problems, or it's a DPS stat in, obviously, when you're cat. So I think like the crit mastery, and we're talking there's hundreds of DPS in between, not thousands. I don't see many high haste druids unless you like table. Table you do both. Bearbis, what do you like? Do you predominantly DPS or do you predominantly tank, or you do a bit of both? Like what?
So I do a little bit of both. Just right now in Wrath, I'm tanking Ruby Sanctum because we need our third tank for that. So I'm doing the shadow side because our other tank is just not good at it. So I do that, but then for ICC, I'm just straight DPS the entire way. Like I'm getting the Unholy Frenzy. We have a warrior tank for vigilance on me, so I'm like straight DPS the whole way.
Yeah, so I think for that sort of circumstance, your ICC circumstance, I do think it like a straight haste cat would be better. But then if you want to do like both, a mastery, like heavy mastery, just because of the benefit you get for doing both. That's how I see it now. But again, like, I could be proven wrong heavily when it comes to actually when it's live or when we actually get to test all of this when it works properly. But, I see the benefit of mastery for both specs. I don't see the benefit of haste for both specs. Like, haste in cat is amazing.
Well,
haste in bear.
Currently, threat in bear form is not working properly.
Have I even done any dungeons with a bear? No, I've done all of them 80 plus. I've done with a paladin.
Not work. Remember when we were doing a little bit of stuff go and you were pulling off me? Yeah, that's not how it's supposed to work. Even with me just doing the simple rotation for bear, like when I had Berserk up, it was fine. When I didn't have Berserk up, you were pulling off me, and you were 12 levels below me. It just not working.
Yeah.
When we were doing the 5-man dungeons in Outland, like it's not working properly currently. And also bear auto attacks aren't working properly on the beta. So like the scaling of it's just not the way it's supposed to be.
We did Blood Furnace and Ramparts, and I just thought that I was just a badass fucking boomkin, and I was just ripping thread off a level 80 in there. I didn't think it was bugged at all.
It's bugged. It's definitely bugged.
It's got to be. I'm with Bearbis because trust me, you would not pull threat off me as a bear in a dungeon. That's where they excel. Like if we're talking, with like thrash, swipe, fucking maul, like you don't need berserk. The damage that bears do in 5-man content is disgusting. And pre-thorns in on the pole.
Thrash. We don't even have thrash at 80. We have it at 81.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking, more 85 dungeons, but yeah.
So there should have been no way that he was pulling off of me.
Yeah, that's definitely a bug. Like that's added to the list of things about the beta that are bugged or not working properly.
I actually think bears in 5-man's table are the. I think they are the fucking highest output class in dungeons. I've never seen a tank do more damage than not even me. Like Jay, when Jay was playing his bear, Majay. Shout out to Majay. He does good Cata videos. If you want to go check out Majay Gaming. Like when we was doing dungeon and he was on his bear, DPS was getting nowhere near him. Because it's just he's in full DPS, like full cat gear in bear in this spec that's on the screen now, and like it's vile. Like that threat is not even a thing.
Yeah, if you chain pull and just never lose vengeance, like yours, it's
there's no way. There's just no way anybody's going to be pulling off you, and you should be chain pulling as any tank, really.
Yeah, it's one of those things where since there's so much stuff on beta that's not working properly, like there's the we can't even make a judgment call as to what needs adjustments or buffed or debuffed or whatever because the shit's just not working right. Like we don't know if the numbers are too low yet because the shit's not working right.
Yeah.
So to say something needs to be buffed is way premature because things are not even working properly to begin with. There's no way that we know if it's enough yet because it's just not working at all.
Well, I think that's the good thing. Which what I'm finding personally, and okay, go if you need to go, might need to DC for a second and come back. What I'm finding personally on the beta, spending a lot of time on it, is there's a lot of people that are loving Cata personally, which amazing. I'm really I'm happier than the devs that people are enjoying Cata after all the hate that it's got for so long. But there's not that many people that sort of know how it should work. You know, as in, like, I have my own server that I use when I'm doing videos. I played on multiple private servers. I remember Cata largely back in the day. You know, and also research how it also did work back in the day using like the Wayback Machine with World of Logs and stuff like that. But there's like not that much understanding. So we've had such big beta waves that there's a lot of people that are like, is this right? Is this how much damage I should do? Is this how this thing works? You know, in Wrath, we had so many content creators, so many, you know, big voices that people watched on stream that knew what they was talking about because they'd played on Warmain, every season of Warmain. They'd played on Molten. They'd played on all of these, you know, Wrath private servers. There's such a lack of understanding. Without sounding bad, like, I'm not saying people don't know what they're doing, but do you know what I mean? I do think Cata is actually where the private server scene falls off a bit, where we know how vanilla should work.
There definitely weren't nearly as many Cata private servers as other versions. Like there was even, I saw more TBC private servers than Cata private servers.
Exactly. Yeah. TBC. I mean, TBC was booming, like Karazhan, Endless, all of that. So it's like no one's 100% sure. Yeah, even me. Like I come across things and I'm like, is that right? Is that not right? You know, sometimes I'm a bit gut feeling like I don't think that's right. You know, whereas like if it was Wrath, I'd be like, that's not right. Like, there's no way it should do that. So I think Cata's a lot less of a solved game, which in a way is like a good and a bad thing. Yeah, we could end up with a little bit of a different experience.
Yeah, it's good because it's fun to figure stuff out. It's bad because we will have less of an idea of whether or not it's been ported properly for Classic. Like, there's fewer people that know the things front to back, like how they did with, you know, vanilla TBC and Wrath, to the point where if they do get something wrong with Cata Classic, there's fewer people that are going to realize it and know about it and be able to speak up about it because they just don't know. There aren't as many people out there who are as well versed with Cata as with previous versions.
Yeah, I was going to report Nourish being bugged. Or Omen of Clarity, like the clear casting proc, because Omen of Clarity says, like the way the tooltip reads, as long as it's like a casted healing spell, that healing spell should consume the clear casting. It should be a 0 mana cost heal. And I looked at, like, and it wasn't working that way. I would cast Nourish, it would cost mana, and it would not consume the Omen of Clarity proc. I had to go to like WoW Wiki, I think is what it was, and see that there was a patch note from like 4.1 or 4.2 or something like that, and it was like Nourish no longer consumes clear casting procs. And like that's just one little example. Like there's just so many things like that where somebody might remember phase 1 of Cata where it did work, and then it got changed, and we're going to see the 4.3 version of it where it doesn't work. So yeah, like nobody knows like what's going to work, what Blizzard's plan is, like what do they want to have working, and what patch is it going to be strictly 4.3 and that's what we get. It's weird. And there hasn't been any post that I've seen of anything. Like the beta just got launched, it's like, here you go. Play it.
Oh no, they put out a post saying like this is what we want testing. And they've done that twice. They've done it the first time, and then they've done it again with the big updates. But yeah, the communication's been shit. Like, 100%.
Yeah, like nothing that they fixed either has been announced.
No.
You just log in, and then all of a sudden you might be like, oh yeah, this is working now, and it wasn't working that way.
Well,
Yeah.
they have like known bugs on their blue posts, because they do blue posts on their website about it, but like they're not fixing anything. They're just trying to get all of the other stuff tested so that they have a bunch of stuff to fix before it goes live.
Yeah, I think we're going to go from like exactly what Bearbiss said. I think we're going to go from like we're all a bit like fucking hell, all the DCs and like these are not working, this class ain't working, this master is not working, no new guild panel, no RBGs, no anything. and then they'll just go boom. There you go. Enjoy like everything in one.
Yeah.
I hope so. I feel like I'm putting a lot of faith in them, but I feel like that's what's going to happen, and that's going to be a great day.
If those things are then fucked as well, then it's like, all right, well now when is all this shit? Like how much testing do we need on all this stuff that's supposed to work?
No, I think they're probably I think they're probably pretty close. Like I do genuinely feel like they're getting close.
I think it just looks bad because like with the size of the team they have to like pretty much laser focus on like one thing at a time. And in the meantime, like the stuff that they're specifically testing and looking to fix and whatever, like this other stuff has gone by the wayside. Like, you know, like every time you log out on a feral druid, you have to respec and to relearn Mangle because Mangle keeps unlearning every time you log out, and you have to also retrain Omen of Clarity. Like that little thing, like that's been in the beta the whole time. So like when stuff like that keeps not getting fixed, it definitely gets frustrating from, you know, a testing perspective, because it's made me not even want to like get into test the stuff that they want tested, because it's like it's annoying to have to respec every time. Like I'd rather just not deal with that. But it's probably just a product of the fact that they have a small team and they have to focus on one thing at a time, and the thing that they're focusing on right now is not the way that the classes are working. So everybody just kind of has to accept that, like, okay, the stuff that's been annoying for this whole time isn't getting fixed yet because that's not what they're currently testing for. It's like, you know, it's to continue submitting, you know, I submitted a couple of bug reports about the Mangle thing, and then after it kept happening, I was like, okay, clearly they already know about it. There's no way that they don't know about it. I can probably stop submitting bug reports for this thing, because otherwise all it's going to do is clog up their bug report log with this, you know, 30,000th reporting of Mangle. They're like, okay, we already know. So I just feel bad for the person who has to sort through all those every time they go through them all, because it's like, oh, there's another Mangle, there's another Mangle, there's another Mangle. Like they know by now. They know.
But that was my biggest issue.
I guarantee they know about all the super obvious stuff. Guaranteed, they already know.
Yeah, but that was my biggest issue, was like the basics didn't get fixed before they then opened the floodgates. You know, like there was a very small amount of us on the beta, which is fine. I know people are complaining. They're like, oh, I signed up, I want to get in. All right, that's great. But then they just opened the floodgates and let loads and loads of people in, when all of the basic shit that we knew didn't work still didn't work. Like respecing and losing your, you know, your key talent from the other, you know, what you've just respec from. You know, those things should have been fixed before they opened up, like, and sent more invites. And I know invites have gone out in the last like 24 hours because there's people that I personally play with who didn't have beta access, and they've got it in the last 24, 48 hours. But the shit that's been bugged since I got on day one is still bugged now. It's like, well, stop sending fucking waves of invites out. Like, fix the stuff and then go, right, that's all working. Let's send some invites out. Right, now this shit's not working. Let's fix that. Now let's send some more invites out. I don't quite understand what their methodology is behind what they're trying to do at the moment, because of what you said. You know, I would have reported the same shit that you're reporting now, and then the next wave goes out and they're reporting the same shit that you're reporting. The next wave goes out, they're reporting the same shit that he was reporting before. You know what I mean? It's like it don't really seem particularly useful.
Yeah,
it's counterproductive.
Point, right, exactly. Like at what point does it become damaging for Cata? For people to log in and be like, oh, Cata sucks because this shit doesn't work. It's like, well, it's not, it's beta. There's so many people that don't understand that it's beta, that this isn't actually what the game is. And they're like, oh, this shit sucks, I'm not going to play it. Like,
so I've actually made a joke about it being beta. It's not beta. It's alpha. This is alpha.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, exactly.
Alpha beta.
Yeah.
Alpha beta, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Well, it's closer to alpha purely because there's not really that, outside the leveling, there's not that much Cata content in it. They even put a post out saying you can test archaeology now, but you can't train it. Like, literally. Yeah, that was one of the things of this latest update.
Nothing's
was
matching up.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, they need to sort their shit out. But again, I do think it's because they've got a lot going on with Season of Discovery and Plunderstorm and fucking God knows what else they're doing. That they're just spread very thin. But I do
It'd just be nice
think
if there was like a little more communication about the whole process, then people would, I think it would put more people at ease and people would understand what's going on a little more instead of us just being totally in the dark about it.
Yeah, some communication, absolutely. And I am just very hopeful that in the next couple of weeks they'll do a massive update on the beta where we're all like, oh shit, okay, everything's fixed. Like, everything that we've been complaining about is fixed. Yeah, I was.
And one more thing. Okay, one more thing really quick before we move on is, to me, since we're testing the leveling experience from 80 to 85 right now, I think that's like one of their main goals. To me, I would think that their priority would be to fix the bug spells that prevent us from moving further through the quest chains in the zones, and that hasn't happened yet. So it's like there's all these quests that are locked that nobody has been able to do yet, and we're still going to have a chance to test those. And I can just their track record right now, they're going to open up other random shit. They're going to open up the raids before we can even finish testing the quest, I think, and it's going to be weird.
Yep. Well, there's a lot of the quests that were still bugged on the original Cata, like even after launch. When they did the beta testing, there were still bugs coming from the original launch. And these are the same things that they haven't fixed. Like, I remember playing the beta back in the day. I remember playing all this stuff. I remember having to do most of this stuff, and it's not working how it's supposed to.
Yeah. But I would also rather, at the same time, like, that they take the time to make sure just when it goes live, it works. If it takes a bit longer than we like, and the people that are playing it, like, I'll literally be on the beta until it ends, just because it's fun. It's more fun than doing anything on Wrath or Sod at the moment. So, just out of pure fun, I'll still be playing it, but it should be further along than it is now. But at the same time, I'd rather they didn't just, like what you just said, go, like next week they go, right, we're focusing now on heroic dungeons. It's like, well, no, let's not focus on heroic dungeons. Fix all the shit before and force people to now, like, go and test the quests and make sure that the quests after the quests were bricked, where you can't get further than that one where you have to jump on the platforms in Deep Home. Let's now go back and do that quest and get further through to make sure the rest of the quests work. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want that shit in live.
Yeah, I know. And I did go back and look at the blue tracker, and some gripes that I personally have been griping about, like Rejuve is doing significantly lower healing than it should. That is on their notes. I should have checked that blue tracker. That's one of the things I don't usually check. So
they don't, like, Wowhead doesn't even post that stuff either.
Exactly.
Like, you have to go in and check the blue tracker.
Mm-hmm. So there is one from Kyvax from March 28th, a few days ago, and I think that's when they opened up the leveling to 85.
Yeah.
And it says the class and combat. There's a list. I can read them out if you want me to, Scotty, or we can
read them out. Yeah, read them out. Sure, why not? Yeah, just so anyone who is playing a beta, they know what is actually known and not known. Yeah, I think that'd be useful.
So there's class and combat. Here, let me send you.
I want to link that in chat too. So people can follow along if they want to.
Well,
or just so they have the link for themselves for later on.
I gave it to Scotty because that was the fastest way. So Scotty can pull it up on screen, but I'm not a mod in the YouTube, so I can't post the link. But class and, well, I guess I'll start at the top then. At this time, the following features have been added: leveling from 80 to 85. Zones are unlocked. Leveling dungeons. Level 80 players will begin to gain experience. Character copy, archaeology. The following features are still a work in progress and are unavailable for now: reforging, transmog, guild system updates, dungeon journal, LFD, Tolbrad. We're currently tracking the following known issues. There's a couple quests. The cinematic doesn't play properly during the Eye of the Storm, causing players to be stuck for 4 minutes without being able to interact with the quest giver.
Is that all?
Nice. Yeah, the quest B Raptor is not completable. Some cinematics don't play properly, requiring players to escape out of them. So then the class and combat portion, players can still learn some weapon skills, and it's like defensives too. Like my defense rating is always trying to level up as I'm leveling up, so I'm just getting crushed and crit by mobs. It felt really bad. Resistances aren't calculating properly. For Druid, Euphoria proc rate when casting Starfire and Rat, W-R-A-T. Okay.
New spell.
I didn't know we had that spell. Yep. Is significantly lower than it should be. Druid Mangle for Cat and Bear are unlearned on logout. Druid Rejuve is doing significantly lower healing than it should. For DKs, Raid Dead doesn't raise a ghoul, and Rune Tap does not activate a rune immediately. Goblin Rocket Barrage doesn't scale with attack power. Paladin and Warrior block 1 damage. Block 1 damage.
Oh my god, that really explains a lot, Flo. If you're watching, Flo, no, honestly, Flo, if you're watching,
it out.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it's supposed to block 30% of the damage.
30%, and if it's only blocking 1 damage,
30%.
That
and
really
it's supposed to block 60% for some talents. Like I've played with paladin tanks in some of the newer dungeons. They die so quick.
Well,
it's hilarious.
Yeah. So it's
And then we've got
60% for a warrior, and you can get 50% as a paladin. But on our Flo's been tanking all of our dungeons as a paladin, and in heroics he is getting slapped. That kind of explains why.
We got Warlock Blood Pact gives strength instead of stamina, and then the last thing
hang
is
on, that's not a bad thing. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we'll keep that.
How did those wires get crossed?
Obviously, it was a spelling error because the spelling errors in this blue post is pretty bad. Some orc and gnome NPCs are displaying untextured pink facial hair. Questionable fashion choice. Questionable.
Oh, like that one. Remember the orc on the guard tower near Razor Hill?
Yeah. But they're saying pink isn't acceptable as a fashion choice. I thought this was Blizzard. What?
It's just questionable.
Questionable.
It was white. Now it's pink.
Yeah. They upgraded it from being just a non-textured white to having a little bit of color. But yeah, that's the little blue post.
Yeah, that's what we're working with. But yeah, it says archaeology has been added. Archaeology isn't working. You can't train it. The dungeons, it don't say anything about the dungeons. You know, they've just said the leveling zone. So most of the dungeons are working. Grim Battle's not. That's the only one that I've seen that's not. We've done everything else.
What's wrong, Grim Battle? Is the dragon the thing where you have to ride the dragon and throw the bombs? Is that not working or something?
No, you just can't get in.
Oh, won't let you in.
You literally just can't walk. There's no portal. You just can't walk in.
So I guess technically, no, you can't ride the dragons.
No, you definitely can't ride the dragons.
Is the NPC for Blackrock Caverns actually working now?
Which one? The one in
Hydra?
Hydra?
That's supposed to destroy... No, Blackrock Caverns.
Oh, as in Raz.
Yeah.
Raz, the one that... No,
actually...
it just stands on the spot. No, it stands on the spot. You have to drag everything to it. Yeah, that's still not working.
Yeah, so it's still not working.
No. Yeah, because we wanted to time like the a Blackrock Caverns run in full ICC 25 heroic gear, and look at what sort of XP an hour we could get. But then we done one run and was like, there's no point timing anything because we're having to run backwards and forwards, taking mobs to him.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just pointless. But
I feel
that's
like the amount of work that the devs are having to do to get Cata working, it seems to me like it's a lot more work than they had to do for TBC and Wrath.
Yeah,
it is. It's way more work.
And I feel like it's a lot more rushed than those as well.
It is a lot more rushed. It is a lot more work, mostly because the work that they're giving themselves is because of the revamped zones. Like they revamped the entire old world. Like they need to have all of this fleshed out because of the revamp.
Yeah, they have to test every single quest chain in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor now. Like, yikes.
Yep. And it's what do most people level? Like, do most people do dungeons while they're leveling, or do they do quests? Most people would do quests because it is the most efficient way to do it solo, because there's not a lot of people that have other people while they're leveling up to 80 to do stuff with. So the questing zones have to be fleshed out before anything else. because that's how they get most of their player base. If they don't do that, they're going to end up losing players at like level 20.
Yeah, and I'll give it to him. The experience on the beta from like 1 to 80 was actually pretty good. Like there was a few bug quests along the way, some of the zones, but like but they weren't all the DCs. I don't know where that came from. You know, like I leveled from 1 to 80, and I don't remember DCing once. 80 to 85 opened, and it's just been like DC after DC. I don't know what went on. Well, yeah, what's actually happened there, but I was really shocked at how smooth actually everything in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor has been, and Outland and Northrend to a certain extent. The odd bugged quest, and the same actually. You know, for testing purposes, what we're actually testing on the beta, the quests are all pretty good. There's the odd one, which won't take them that long to fix. You know, like the odd one in each zone. But that's what I mean. It's not that far off. They'll take all the class bugs, they'll fix all that shit, they'll deploy one big patch, and we'll all be like, oh shit. This is actually like, this is good. This is actually like, this is ready.
So, WoW Shane put a message out there for the quests as far as retail. It's not the same quests as retail. There's a bunch of quests that came out with Cata that are not in retail anymore. You can go back and do those quests, but there's still some in retail that are bugged.
Nice. I just love Scotty's positive attitude on Cataclysm, even the beta. Like, he was so down in the dumps on the SOD podcast the other day. I'm just glad to see you so happy right now, Scotty.
Because I love Cata. What can I say? I like, you know, I get excited about what I'm excited about. I don't put on I don't fake it. I could sit there and fake about how excited I am about Phase 3 of SOD and doing the same shit that I done in Phase 1 and Phase 2, but that don't excite me. Cata does.
That's why I know this is genuine right now. That's what it's making me really happy that you're happy.
Yeah. The thing is, like, is the beta a shit show at the moment? The DCs are like, but no. Outside of that, I'd say no. I think the majority of it's working fine. Would I have liked to have seen it a lot further along than it is? Absolutely yes. I would. If I was Mr. Blizzard, I believe that's his name. If I was Mr. Blizzard, I wouldn't have launched the beta without the guild system in already, as in the actual being able to level the guild while we're all questing. I think it's absolute.
Because they wanted to change it, right?
Yeah. But I would
that they were going to change how it works.
Yeah, they're changing it how it's going to work, which is great. But surely the best time to actually capture the fact that XP is counting towards the guild, reps counting towards the character would have been when everybody's leveling and there's no 80 to 85 copies. You know what I mean? Yeah. The fact that they launched it without that still blows my fucking mind. That's my biggest negative, actually. Out of the whole beta, my biggest negative is why you wouldn't have got the guild system working how you want it to work and put that out from the word go. Outside of that, mate, I can't wait to get back on.
I told you I've done over 500 quests, and there's probably been 5 quests that were just like bugged. You know, there might have been like a graphical error on a quest or something like that. Something didn't work exactly right, but you could still do the quest. So it's like there was 1 in 100 ish are just completely bugged. So that's not that bad. When they've added 700-800 quests into the game. But we're supposed to be talking about Druid.
I was about to bring us back on. I was going to go, that's not bad, go. But what about Resto? Is Resto bugged?
We haven't even talked about Feral Glyphs yet. Holy shit.
Yeah, sorry.
We haven't even gone through the talents yet.
we got to do the feral leveling spec like we did balance. Come on, guys. This is a 1-hour show.
We've touched on most talents. But okay, let's go feral talents. What was I using? Oh yeah, Warcraft 7.
I think the main one that we didn't talk about yet for new stuff is Blood in the Water. That's the one where when you bite a target at or below 25% health, you have a 100% chance to instantly refresh the duration of RIP on the target. And there's a set bonus later on that raises that to much higher than 25% health. What is it, 60% health?
Yeah, it's 60% health with the Dragon Soul.
Yeah. So eventually, if you have a rip on a target and you bite it, when it's at or below 60% health with that set bonus, or 25% without it, you will refresh rip on the target, which is cool. But that's kind of like that's like the last kind of new talent in the feral tree. A lot of stuff works pretty much the same way. Like King of the Jungle works more or less the same way. Rend and Tear works pretty much the same way as well. Most of the other stuff that we have is kind of the same.
So for leveling, what would we pick for talent points?
I would think it's similar. It's pretty similar to what our end game build is going to end up being. I definitely, for the first 2 points, I usually go Feral Swiftness just because it's nice to have the move speed. Yes, we do get travel form at level 16, but being able to move at 30% increased speed in cat form means you get to stay in cat basically the whole time and not really see too much of a speed decrease instead of travel form. So I usually like Feral Swiftness and I just stay in cat the whole time instead of going cheetah form. And I'll go cheetah form if I have to like travel a super long distance.
Does that work like in caves and stuff too, where it would?
Yeah, it works everywhere.
Yeah, and
There was
the in addition bonus is very nice as well, especially for raids.
Oh yeah, Dash and Stampeding Roar have 100% chance to remove all movement impairing effects from affected targets when used. So Stampeding Roar is the raid cooldown, essentially. It's a move speed raid cooldown. Think like the drums from TBC, the move speed drums from TBC, except for it's a Druid ability now. So if you have 2 out of 2 Feral Swiftness and you use Stampeding Roar, if everyone in your group is rooted, they will become unrooted when you use this. Actually, is it roots or is it snares?
Movement impairing effects, yeah. So it's
not
slows.
Roots, just snares.
Slows.
It slows.
But it would mean if there was let's say you was trying to use it and 1 or 2 people were slowed by something, it would like they're not now going to be left behind while you all run. You know, that's where the usefulness comes in. So you're not all just gonna.
Well, it slows and roots. It breaks roots too.
So let's use like a practical example. Let's say like Halion, right? Halion Shadow Realm. Somebody gets the debuff, they have to run out, they get dispelled, they're in that little zone and they're slowed. Stampeding Roar, they can get out of that without the slow.
Yeah, I didn't actually realize Stampeding Roar broke
right, but like
roots.
As an example, like a current example of what you would use it for, the type of situation you'd use it in.
Where do we see Stampeding Roar breaking roots though? I didn't know it broke roots.
Roots is a movement impairing effect.
Yeah, but I don't think it's actually. We could test it. We could test that. But I don't feel like it is. I think that's more just slows. If you was like hard, like literally rooted, I don't think it would break it. Like if you was frost novaed, for example, I don't think it would break the nova.
I'll put it in the Discord chat thing.
Okay, then I'll put it on the screen. Okay, I
believe it was an actual.
So you find that on Wowhead, and the effect number 2 trigger spell Feral Swiftness Clear. The tooltip for it says remove snares and roots.
Move effect 2 Feral Swiftness, remove snares and roots. Okay.
Yeah, and that's how it's supposed to be working. That's how it was working back in original Cata. It was roots and snares after they changed. They changed the talent to affect both. They just didn't change the flavor text of the talent.
Yeah, see, I don't ever remember it actually removing roots.
I think part of this is because of like the fact that we mentioned this in the first part of this deep dive thing, how shapeshifting only clears snares and not roots anymore, unless you're a Resto Druid and then it clears roots, or unless you're a Feral Druid and you have 2 out of 2 Feral Swiftness and you use Dash or Stampeding Roar.
Stampeding Roar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then you can break roots.
It's still breaking me out of root. if I shift out of Moon Conform on the beta, it's still breaking me from roots.
Yeah, that
So
Yeah, so
definitely,
there's
definitely shouldn't.
we wouldn't even be
another
able to
example of
test,
things that aren't working right.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to test Stampeding Roar right now if we wanted to.
No,
Yeah.
but I could, if someone logged on White Main, I could test it right now because we could like root and then Stampede
I
him
think I
raw.
can log on.
Yeah, I again,
it works on White Main.
yeah, definitely.
It's working that way in White Main.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll take your word
tested
for it.
on
Okay,
White Main too.
I'll take your word for it. So okay, it breaks
I
roots
leveled
as well.
from 1 to 85 on White Main. I leveled from 1 to 85 on the beta. Like, it's working how it's supposed to. And even the patch notes, like I went through every single one of the patch notes, and the patch note says Stampede Roar now removes roots.
Okay, all right, cool.
But that was
So anyway.
for different. That was for Warlords.
No. It's for Cata.
What, for that patch note?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see one for Warlords. I didn't see one for Cata.
What are you looking at, Go? The only reason I'm intrigued is because
roots.
I honestly I don't ever recall it removing roots in Cata.
So I actually looked up my notes here. Feral Swiftness now also causes ability dash and Stampeding Roar to have a 50 and 100% chance to fully remove all movement varying effects, which includes roots and snares.
Which patch is that in?
It was 4.2. It's like 4.2 points.
Yeah, no,
something. I can't remember exactly which
I
patch.
do see it in WOD as well. Actually, looking at what Go's looking at, Stampeding Roar should now remove root effects when used, and that was in WOD.
Well, they broke it in WOD. They reverted it back to the original change for Cata in WOD, and then they changed it back to the way it's supposed to be working in WOD because of all the different roots.
But Scott,
It was more of a PvP change.
So if you go to the Feral Swiftness one on Wowpedia, it looks right. 4.1.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
For Cata now also causes dash and Stampeding Roar to have 50/100% chance to instantly remove all movement from the effective targets when used. Well, I guess it doesn't specifically say root there.
Yeah, I don't look. I mean, we're fixating on something that's not massively important. I take Bear Biss's word for it. If he says it should remove root, it should. But yeah,
and if it doesn't, you can go to Grifton's Discord.
It's just very strange, you know, that it only says movement impairing effects.
The way that I kind of see it is like, you know, like there's a rogue talent that causes sprint to be able to break you out of that stuff. It's basically now Feral has that talent.
Yeah,
it's
exactly the same
that's
thing.
Kind of the way that I look at it. So yeah, those are those 2 points. You don't have to get those two first when you're leveling.
We just spoke about the first 2 points for about 10 minutes. How long are we going to be doing this?
So those two are good to get. Like they don't necessarily have to be your first 2 points, but like get them early because it's going to help with the move speed. And then Fuhrer can help as well because specifically wall leveling, you're going to probably be healing yourself a decent amount. So being able to heal yourself and then go back into cat form and not have to wait for your energy is really nice. So at some point you're going to want Fuhrer, all 3 points into Fuhrer. And then at this point you can either you can just start going further down the tree because the predatory strikes bonus to Ravage isn't going to matter because we don't get Ravage until a little bit later anyway. The main reason to get predatory strikes early would be to get instant heals on yourself, which like comparatively isn't that big of a deal really. So personally, I usually go Feral Swiftness and Fuhrer and then continue down the tree, and then I pick up predatory strikes later on to advance further down the tree. The Primal Fury talent is the one that it's always between this one and Fury Swipes for me, the one that I get first. Primal Fury is nice because the extra combo points, but while you're leveling, your crit is so low that like you don't normally crit a lot. So it's like you don't really get the bonus combo points that often because your crit is so low. Whereas with Fury swipes, that percent chance to get the extra hit, the Fury swipe, is always there no matter what, regardless of your crit. So usually, just from a pure practicality standpoint, I go 3 out of 3 Fury swipes first.
Especially if you're using an heirloom weapon as well. You know, where it's it's gonna just get more benefit every time you ding. This talent is literally getting stronger every time you level.
Yeah. And then because of what I said about about your crit being low, sometimes, like, I've leveled probably 3 or 4 druids during original Cata, and I have the one that I only got up to like 63 or something like that on white mane. But I've done like a couple of those as well. I normally skip Primal Fury until my crit's higher. I normally go Feral Aggression, just because of the because you get bite really early, and also Fairy Fire getting 3 stacks immediately is like really nice.
Saving 2 GCDs, yeah.
Yeah, so my first, like, and this is already seems different from what I would normally recommend for people that have watched my stuff before. To skip out on Primal Fury and Predatory Strikes is like, oh, wait a minute, this is the fucking Resto Weave guy. He's telling me to skip these talents. So yeah, the Fairy Fire thing is nice. The extra bite damage is nice. Bite is a core part of your leveling usage. And then I skip both Predatory Strikes and Primal Fury till a little bit later. What level? I can't remember what level we get Tiger's Fury. What level do we get?
28, is it? 28, 24? Something like that?
It's like high 20s.
24.
So 28 sounds... 24?
I'm seeing 24. So by this point, what level are we? We're level... I can't even see what level we're at this point.
We're just
27 when you get to
27 with just those 10 talent points.
Okay, so yeah, at that point, I think it's probably safe to get King of the Jungle. Because we actually have Dagger's Fury, which is nice. And then after that, you could grab Feral Charge. It depends on whether you want Feral Charge while you're leveling. You could also grab Infected Wounds because shit hits harder. And slowing its attack speed is useful. So if we're talking just for pure leveling sake, Infected Wounds has a lot of value because it reduces the damage that you're taking by the stuff that you're fighting, which means you need to heal less, which means you can attack more stuff more quickly. So
I would actually go a different route than this one, because I would actually drop the 2 points into Fear, go into Predatory Instincts, and then go into Feral Charge with Stampede, because at this point we have Ravage, and we can basically continue to kill mobs by killing one in stealth with Ravage, and then Feral Charging to our next one, getting a free Ravage off, and then just keep going from that point, because the cooldown for stealth is 10 seconds. So like you can basically kill a mob, take about 2 to 3 seconds, and kill another mob, take another like 5 seconds, and you have to wait a couple seconds for your next stealth to come up, and you're just basically jumping between mobs.
Yeah, that's a good point. I totally forgot. So Ravage is 22 in Cata.
Yeah, Ravage is 22 in Cata. So it's low enough that you actually only want to put the 1 point in the Fear, because you should be staying in cat form the entire time, picking up the Predatory Strikes just for the crit on Ravage and just destroying things that way.
Yeah, that's a really good... For some reason, I thought Ravage was like way higher level than that. I forgot it was only 22.
So other than that, it'd be the same. So we're dropping 2 out of Fury or going 2 into Predatory Strikes.
Yeah, I would do that instead. Yeah, I
so
Ravage is that low.
So in which case, we're then wanting to pick up Feral Charge and go into Stampede.
Drop King of the Jungle and go Feral Charge and Stampede. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So up to that, so we got what? 2? Oh, I could just look at your thing. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. And at that point,
it's got to be King of the Jungle next, really, isn't it?
It could.
But then again, Primal Fury is now going to get more value because you're getting more crit from Ravage.
Because of Ravage. Yeah. So that's kind of the toss up right there at this point, because you need what, 2 more points to get further?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could
So
get both in Primal Fury.
Yeah, so you could do that. You could go King of the Jungle. It really depends.
I would go King of the Jungle for the extra energy, so you're going between mobs even faster, not having to wait for energy regen, because you're not going to have a lot of haste. So 2 into King of the Jungle, because things shouldn't be dying. They should be dying fast enough. The Primal Fury isn't that big.
Yeah, I would agree
Just
with
to
that.
get
Plus,
to the next
like,
tier.
Ravage does so much damage that like you're gonna Ravage, and then you have 1 combo point, and what by the time you do another thing and it dies, like you don't even have time to bite anyway. You don't have time to use the combo points.
Yeah, you're not going to have times to use the combo points until like 60s.
Yeah.
So, and plus with Fury swipes being there, and you're just attacking with weapons that are just going to destroy it. There's going to be no point to spending the combo points. The only reason you take the predatory strikes is for the extra crit.
Okay, all right. So now we're down to the next tree, which obviously leader of the pack. You're gonna go next.
Yeah, for sure, leader of the pack. We're kind of in like the I guess what I would call it the kind of utility choices at this point. Like, I mean, I would say put your 3rd point into King of the Jungle after that.
Yeah.
And then after that, like you have a few other options. Like Brutal Impact isn't awful. It wouldn't be my first choice to go to. I can see reasons why it could be useful. I usually like Nurturing Instinct, be surprised. But it's just nice because while you're leveling, you're likely not going to be carrying gear with you that will increase your healing. So being able to get healing from your agility while you're healing up in between stuff, if you need to heal, is kind of nice. Also at this point, you could pretty much any of the other talents that you have available to you right now wouldn't be horrible choices. I personally, my preference is to go Nurturing Instinct. I don't know what your preference is though, Bearpiss.
I would go 2 into Primal Fury just to get to the next points.
I do exactly the same.
And then 1 into Nurturing Instinct.
Because what level are we at this point?
We are now 47 with those 5 points in that tree, so to move down to the next one.
All right, so we are getting to the point where stuff is going to start living long enough for to start using finishers. Not quite there, but we'll be there soon.
Yeah, it's better to pick it up now and just have the 1 point to Nurturing Instinct so that your heals are doing 50% more for your agi, but they're just as long as you're killing things fast enough that it's not going to really matter. You're just wanting to get to the next tree down.
The thing is, as well, you've not got that much agility. It's like it's still. Yeah, I 100% would have done the same. I went primal. I personally would have gone Primal Fury a lot earlier than this, but yeah, again, like between any of the choices
Leveling
of
on
those,
the beta just didn't seem like you needed Primal Fury that much until like 50 to 60.
Yeah, shit dies before you can use the combo points anyway. So having I took Primal Fury when I was leveling the beta, and it felt like a waste because I was never getting a chance to use the combo points. I'd be lucky if I could sneak off like a Savage Roar before something died.
Yeah,
and there could be some argument not even to go into Nurturing Instinct and just to go into Thick Hide, so you can pick up some of your tanking stuff when you're soloing elites and stuff.
Yeah. So there's, like I said, like that little floater point is like a utility point. You can kind of, it's like there's a case to be made for basically anywhere that you could put that point, really. But yeah, it's a lot of it's just mostly preference, and there's not really a super wrong answer. I mean, depending on what quest you're doing and what you're fighting, the choice that you made could feel like the wrong choice at the time, but there's not really an inherently wrong answer in that situation.
Well, my guess would have been to go Führer, and that sounds like that's the wrong answer. So,
well, no, because even the thing is,
extra mana.
It's like feral aggression. We've got 2 points in feral aggression, but if we're saying you're opening from stealth with a ravage and the mob's nearly dead, you're not then going to fairy fire, are you? You're not going to ravage and then fairy fire. So even that early on,
10-second cooldown. If stealth has a 10-second cooldown, you kill something that fast before stealth is back off a cooldown again. you fairy fire to pull something, or
I'm not.
into it.
I'm not saying it's useless. Yeah, but then you could just but those 2 points could also be classed as a bit flexible.
Yeah. There's a lot of flexible talent points when you're leveling as a cat, but as it gets further and further in, you're gonna want these talent points anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. When shit's lasting a bit longer.
A lot of this too is like an exercise of like there's so many different ways that you could put some of these flex talents. It's like depending on what your preferences are as a player and the way that you want to be playing while you're leveling, like these are the things to think about when you're putting your points in.
Yeah, and that's why it's good. Like we've all got slightly different views. Like Go saying more in Furor. I'm like feral aggression. You're not really going to use ferocious bite. If we're saying we're going to be one shotting stuff close, what like you're going to ravage and then a couple of auto attacks and it's dead. Feral aggression starts losing value. But so we'll keep working through. So because these are still like everything we've took is useful. So we're now at the point where we're in like the third tier from the bottom. So it's like primal madness, survival instincts, which I never take survival instincts anyway. Where would you go next?
It depends on, so like if you like to do like the harder quests, you like to solo some of the stuff, survival instincts can make a big difference.
Remember though, there isn't really hard quests. Or when I say there's not hard quests, a lot of the elite quests are gone, aren't they? That was the only reason I said I don't take survival instincts, because there's quests where it's like the quests where you would need it before are now non-elite, and the ones that are elite, that's not going to allow you to solo them, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I'm thinking a little bit of like world PvP wise. I usually like having brutal impact to have a longer stun, so having like survival instincts too.
You play on Mankrik, which is a PvE server.
But I've been playing
even in a PvP situation, you're not gonna, because Bash is a 1 minute cooldown. Like it's not gonna be that big of an impact other than you escape. That the Bash is used for an escape if you're a Moonkin. Like as a feral, you're using it as an escape to reset and get your stuff back up, but then you're also giving them time to reset. But we're thinking like the fastest way to level, you don't take Bash.
And not survival instincts either then?
No, you don't take survival instincts to level unless you're soloing elite quest and Outlands, and that's when you actually need it.
And there's no natural reaction either, so you're getting endless carnage, primal madness, and then you've got one more point to fill in nurturing.
Yeah, and this is where I'd put another point into thick hide, so that like if I wanted to pull multiple mobs again, I can just have a little bit more crit reduction, a little bit more armor when I'm in bear form. And if I pulled something that, oh crap, I'm not supposed to actually pull that, I need a little bit of survivability, thick hide.
So we're going. Where would we go next? Like next point, we'd go primal madness or endless carnage.
Endless. I would go endless carnage, because at this point you're gonna have your Savage Roar. You're gonna be using your Savage Roar a lot more because of the auto attack damage that it gives you instead of the extra damage increase. That most of your damage while you're leveling is gonna come from your auto attacks, anyways.
Yeah, that extra 8 seconds is a big deal. It's kind of like having it's like I would view it a similar way to like how the rogue expose armor glyph in Wrath was, where like it's a big enough increase that it's almost like having like another 1 or 2 combo points, or all like somewhere between there on your, like if you like did they change the duration of Savage Roar at all?
No, the duration stays the same. So like as far as like each combo point.
Yeah,
the one combo point.
So a 1-pointer is 14. So an extra 8 seconds on that becomes a 20. Jesus, math.
22. Yeah, it's 22.
Yeah, it's basically like putting up
points.
a 3 combo points Savage Roar with just a 1. So like it's pretty big, especially when you're moving in between packs. Like you're gonna not want to put it back up for another like 20 seconds ish, and then you're gonna have it again, and then you're just gonna go back to stealth and just keep moving. the whole point of leveling as a feral is just to keep moving on and not really stop and do anything other than going back to turning your quests.
Yeah, so kind of think about it like that then. Like the 2 points in Endless Carnage is like getting free combo points on your Savage Roar, essentially. That's how you look at it. Because like the rake portion of it, stuff usually isn't going to live long enough for that long of a rake to tick. Like we're not really using.
Yeah, it's not going to expire.
Leveling anyway. But the Savage Roar portion is the reason why you take that one.
Okay, and then Primal Madness next, we're saying?
Yep. Both points in the Primal Madness, and this is where you would have the 1 extra point left. And I would put it so I have 2 points into Thick Hide and to move on. Like, I'm not really healing that much as I'm going on. Even when I was leveling, I was healing maybe just every 5-10 mobs, and it's the Nurturing Instinct isn't going to be that big of a deal because you don't have that much agi in the first place.
Cool. Okay, we're down to the next tier.
Blood in the Water is not really that useful for leveling because we're not usually using Rip on stuff, so we don't really get a whole lot of value out of that talent at all while we're leveling. The only time you really start getting use out of that is if you're doing group content or stuff is living long enough for you to be using Rip. So Blood in the Water, I don't even normally take that at all while I'm leveling, but then I respec once I hit, the part where I'm doing dungeons, and then I get it.
We're 57 now, so it might actually be a good idea to start picking it up for the Outland mobs.
It could, yeah, it depends. Especially if you're going to be doing dungeons and stuff while you're leveling and stuff too. Yeah, it could make sense, especially on bosses and whatever. Either way, I usually go Rend and Tear before grabbing Blood in the Water anyway.
Yeah, because you're going to have Rake on the mob, so when you Ferocious Bite, it's more about getting the crit. 25% crit for your finisher. I mean, you're going to take
just
both
flat
anyway.
Damage to shred.
But you're not going to be shredding, are you?
Well, it depends. If instead of opening with a Ravage, if you decide to open with a Pounce instead, like there's a leveling build where you take Glyph Pounce, and you open with a Pounce, and then you can shred twice before, and then 2 shreds. Depend if you have because the Pounce bleed. Wait, does Pounce still do a bleed in Cata? Shit.
Yes, it does.
Maybe I'm just lazy and I just press Mangle. Unless I can front shred, which we all know what front shredding is from private servers, where you can actually
it's probably not going to be a thing in Cata.
No, exactly. Yeah, dancing backwards and forwards and pressing shred. Like,
I watched a video of 2 girls front shredding the other night.
Oh yeah, tell us more.
But yeah, I remember doing a Pounce and then 2 shreds, and it was doing more damage than one Ravage. I don't know if I was on. This is on White Mane, so I don't know if there was something weird going on with that. But I was noticing more damage from 2 shreds after a Pounce than just an open Ravage.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like how you prefer to level. It could go both ways. It still does work really well that way too, using a Pounce as an opener. I tried it both ways. I preferred the Ravage because it was more front-loaded damage, and things were just dying so quickly. I just did not really care. But if I was going up against a mob that was a lot higher level than me or had a lot more health than I was used to, I would open with a Pounce, use a Mangle, then a Shred, just so that I would get that extra bonus damage as well, and then kill him off with a Ferocious Bite. That would be a big one right there. Is just killing him off with Ferocious Bite.
Yeah. So either way, I mean, yeah, it's kind of, we did yet another tangent. Yeah, like Shred comes up while leveling sometimes. It's not super often, but sometimes, yeah. But yeah. Most often, the bonus from Rend and Tear you're going to see from Bite instead of Shred. Occasionally Shred, but usually Bite.
So the next 2 points would just be Blood in the Water, so you can get down to Berserk because you don't want Pulverize unless you're tanking.
Right, or you can go back and pick up. You can go back and pick up your Survival Instincts because you're going to be 63 at this point, and go into your Thick Hide, or you can go into 2 points into Natural Reaction, so you can get some extra survival or some extra rage while you're in bear form. It's these last 2 talent points while you're leveling are more of what you figure you're going to need, and just depends on what you're doing as a feral druid at this point. If you're doing more dungeons, you go into the blood and water. If you're doing more solo stuff, I would personally go into thick hide and survival instincts to do those elite solo quests and outlines, because you're 63 at this point.
It depends also, like if you're doing a lot of dungeons, it depends on whether or not you're going to be DPSing those dungeons or if you're going to be tanking those dungeons. That's a big distinction as well. So like a lot of these talents so far,
if you're tanking, you go, yeah. Like if you're tanking, you're taking survival instincts and thick hide to get to berserk at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So yeah, it just depends on exactly what you're doing, but like that's all the stuff that all those talents do. So depending on what you want to be doing at this point, make your choice accordingly.
Yeah, this is the thing about the talents in Cata is they are very flexible. Like, and it's not just Druid; it's like every class. Like when we looked at Boomy,
each one actually feels impactful too.
Yeah, exactly. They feel impactful, and like again, if we was just to go back to Boomy just for a sec. It's like, the difference between being able to get more slows down to be able to kite stuff, being able to get an interrupt, like an AoE interrupt, like, you get like more at the moment in this feral spec, we can't interrupt reliably because we've not took brutal impact. You're always sacrificing something. So it's like, you can get a little bit more damage or you can get a bit more survivability or whatever, but then like you're always losing something, which that's what I really like. I like that the choices are impactful.
Then I would imagine you guys are going like the balanced druids do over to the resto tree, because I don't really see anything hitting for ferals in balance at all.
Yeah, we go into the balance tree at this point.
You go to the resto tree.
Resto tree.
Yeah, resto.
Okay.
Yeah, go straight into resto. Get up your Heart of the Wild for your extra stamina and your extra 10% attack power while in cat form. Then natural shapeshifter and master shapeshifter. At this point, you have 4 talent points that are pretty flexible in what you would use them for. Depending on what you're doing, if you're going for more cat build for like raids at this point, he would probably go into nurturing instinct or brutal impact, just get those finished off, but then you're taking off your thick hide because you're pure cat. But also going to perseverance isn't a bad thing for some of the raids because there's a lot of spell damage that goes out. The big change that we have, we no longer ignore 30% of the AoE damage that comes out. So like any type of mitigation we can take is going to be huge in raids. But also just being able to fulfill like an off tank role is just by going into your thick hide and full into natural reaction and not picking up like any other of your survival talents for like a pure cat build. You're just there to be an off tank and just taunt when needed and just go back straight to cat, do as much DPS as possible.
Yeah, so this build that's on screen now is maybe a bit small. I could just do it in this talent calculator instead. Well, that's all the same except for we don't have perseverance, where you can basically do like where you can have 2 specs and do all 3. You can heal, you can tank, you can DPS. When you're the hybrid tank, where you're off tanking and then going in cat and doing like amazing amounts of DPS at the same time. You're sacrificing brutal impact, so you can't interrupt. Let me just have a look at exactly what are we sacrificing. Obviously, we wouldn't bring infected wounds because the main tank's going to bring the slowing of the attack speed. We can't interrupt. You're not going to have nurturing instincts, which makes no difference whatsoever anyway. But you literally bring everything else. So as a tank, when you look at these talents that are on screen now, like as a tank, all you're losing is pulverize, which you don't need anyway. Like you'll be absolutely fine without pulverize. You've still got survival instincts. You've got everything you need as a bear. As a DPS, you've got everything you need as a DPS, apart from the fact you can't interrupt. Yeah, it's like, again, like as a DPS, perseverance is actually really nice. If you was a straight cat, you would obviously drop like, well, you wouldn't need thick hide. you wouldn't need natural reaction, and then you pick up perseverance, and then just put these points wherever you want. You take them out, and you have them like that. So you've got nurture and instinct. If you wanted it, well, you take nurture and instinct out, and you go brutal impact. To be fair, so now you're a feral DPS that can interrupt, and you're taking 6% less spell damage. But like that's so when I say minor, it's not minor. But the fact that you can just sacrifice the ability to interrupt when so many other classes can interrupt now anyway, and benefit from it, that's a big deal as well. It's like when you're a feral and you interrupt, you're getting 0 benefit. When a warrior interrupts, they're getting damage. When a mage interrupts, they're getting damage. Like you want if you need to interrupt, you need to interrupt. But there is actually a bigger benefit for other classes to interrupt in Cata than you as a druid. So wasting 2 talent points to be able to do something that's going to give you nothing when somebody else can do it and actually get a benefit from it is obviously, it's like a no-brainer. So having a spec like this where you can literally tank as good as a tank, DPS as good as DPS, and your only sacrifice is the ability to interrupt is huge.
And that's why I don't really go for Solar Beam. I haven't yet, because other classes get a benefit. Solar Beam's the same way. Like, I don't personally get anything. It's 1 talent point, but still, it's a 1 minute cooldown for an interrupt. Like, no, let the rogue kick.
It's a PvP talent. Solar Beam is a PvP talent.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, absolutely no doubt. But while we're talking about PvP briefly, because we'll touch on Resto, but honestly, you're never going to level as Resto. We can talk about key Resto talent changes, but like we don't need to spend very, very long on Resto at all, because ultimately, you know, if you want to be a healing druid, you could go like every fucking talent point in Resto if you want. Like it don't really matter. There's nothing like funky that you're going to be able to do like a feral, where they can like use all their talents and be able to do 2 roles. A Boomy's got a lot more options. As a Resto, your options are fairly limited. But
is there a reason for Resto to go into the feral, or they would probably go into balance for like Starlight Wrath, maybe a couple points in like the first 2 tiers of balance?
Yeah, you want to get down into Genesis. Like you obviously you want your heal over times doing more, so you're definitely going down into balance.
If there was any talent in the feral tree that a Resto Druid would ever take, it would be just Furor for the maximum mana increase, and that's about it. It's really the only thing that would even be worth it.
Yeah, as a Resto Druid, like you're gonna. I mean, I can just.
And even I don't know if it's worth it.
my Resto build is very all over the place. But again, I've gone literally down to Genesis, which is just the most important part, and then I've got 1 point in Furor, and that was in Sacrifice of Nature Swiftness. But you could take the 1 out of Furor and take Nature Swiftness. But it's a healing centric build, you know, as in you can move points around and get Furious Storm Rage for more offensive healing, but as a Resto Druid, that's like you're the one. I'd say the one spec of healer where actually doing damage is just not important. You should be getting blanket hots around on everyone, ready for the damage coming in, rather than going, oh, I've got nothing to do, I'm gonna spam Wrath. It's like, well, no, instead of spamming Wrath, get hots on people ready for when the damage comes in.
I feel like the only time I can think of where a Resto Druid would want to be helping to contribute damage is like in 10-man specifically, because there's fewer people that you need to blanket. So you might have the extra couple of GCDs to sling some spells, maybe.
Yeah, which you would. Yeah. You would have more time. But as I say, I don't even take Nature Swiftness as a Resto Druid in Cata, because it's just like that oh shit button's just not needed. If you're keeping Life Bloom up on the tank and you're just maintaining hots and, you know, refreshing Life Bloom with Nourish now and again, a Healing Touch if you need to, you could absolutely take the point out of Furor and go Nature Swiftness, but it's fairly clear cut. I mean, we can have a quick glance through the talents though, just to really round the video out nicely, because and we could. Well, we can't really start with a balance. We'll go resto first. Like
We
blessing
gotta
of
talk
the.
about glyphs at some point too.
What feral glyphs? Do you want to? I can't get the feral. Oh, I can. Yeah. Go on. Go feral glyphs first then.
They're pretty. Most of them are pretty obvious. They changed glyph of shred to glyph of bloodletting instead. So now instead of it just being shred that increases the duration of rip, now it's shred and mangle can both do that. Which is nice. And then the glyph of rip is different now as well. Glyph of rip and wrath just increases the duration of rip, but in Cata, glyph of rip increases the damage of rip by 15%, which is way better. And then glyph of savage roar is 5% bonus damage instead of 3% like how it is in wrath.
Well, so it's the bonus damage that is to auto attacks now instead of just all attacks.
Right. Like Savage Roar itself is different. Like in Wrath, Savage Roar is 30% base, 30% all damage, and then the glyph makes it 33% all damage. But in Cata, it's auto attacks only.
Which is pretty crap, but it's still nice for leveling a little bit. It's nice for raids to get that 80% auto attack damage, but it's not a glyph that we'll end up taking because it's not very impactful.
Yeah, it's also it makes it less. Even though you want to keep Savage Roar up, obviously as close to 100% as possible, it's a lot less punishing when Savage Roar falls off now. Which is
it's more
which
important when you have high uptime. Like when you have really high uptime and you have a lot of white damage, Savage Roar is a lot more important. But if it's like a super like heavy burst situation, it's not as big a deal. Like think like tendrils on spine. Like you don't necessarily if they need to die like in 4 seconds, you're not going to waste the GCD on a Savage Roar.
No, absolutely not.
And you're not going to get a lot of auto attacks off anyway. You're focusing on pumping. The other two glyphs, or there's 3 other glyphs that we could use for Feral. We have Berserk, Mangle, and Tiger's Fury. Tiger's Fury just reduces the cooldown of Tiger's Fury by 3 seconds. Not always great. It depends on the length of the fight. If this can cause you to get an extra Tiger's Fury in, it could be okay. Berserk, glyph of Berserk increases the duration for Berserk by 10 seconds, and Wrath, I'm pretty sure it's only 5. So this is, an extra 5 seconds on the duration of Berserk from the glyph, which is pretty good. And then the other one, what did I say though? Oh shit, I clicked something. Mangle increases the duration of Mangle increases the damage of Mangle by 10%. So those are the other 3 options that we have. So depending on situationally, if it's a fight where you have high uptime consistently for a long time, Savage Roar, you get a lot of mileage out of that one. If it's a fight where you aren't able to shred for whatever reason, like there's a bunch of fights in Cata where we can't shred, like Sinestra can't shred. I think we can shred Ragnaros. I know that. There's a couple of Alakir we can't shred. There's like a bunch of stupid, like it's really stupid how many fights we can't shred. We can't Ultraxian, we can't shred Ultraxian. So like on those fights, you're probably going to want to use glyph of Mangle instead of Savage Roar, because you're going to be mangling as your primary builder. Or even, I would say that's what I would say is on those fights you go Bloodletting, Rip, Mangle and then on other fights Bloodletting, Rip, Savage Roar. But it depends on the fight. It's like the one class where like your prime glyphs might change depending on the fight.
Yeah, and depending on the phase. So, early on, phase 1, like the majority of the time, Berserk is like you'll be using Bloodletting, Rip, and Berserk. Like the 10 seconds on Berserk is huge. Like the majority of fights, Berserk is going to be better. But actually,
especially on the short fights, like the super short fights, like the Berserk glyph is a way bigger impact than the other ones if it's a really short fight.
Yeah, so like if you're doing 5-mans, if you're like when you're doing your pre-raid gearing and you're doing 5-man heroics, like Berserk is like the no-brain glyph that's going in there. But Tiger's Fury, as minor as it looks, with it only reducing the cooldown of Tiger's Fury by 3 seconds, really smooths the rotation out. Because if you're wanting to get a Tiger's Fury rip up, it getting the reduced cooldown means that you can almost Tiger's Fury every rip. Whereas if you're using Glyph of Berserk, you can't. It's like every other rip. So I really like Tiger's Fury in low levels of gear, and then Berserk in higher levels of gear. Like in my gear at the moment, I'm on with like tier 11/tier 12 gear. I'm using Berserk, but actually in like pre-raid,
you're gonna want the Berserk in tier 11 anyways because of the tier set bonus. I think it's tier 11, isn't it?
Finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo to extend the duration of Berserk. That's 12, tier 12. Tier 11. Tier 11.
Well, that's
no, hang on. What are we? Tier 10 now, tier 12, yeah. Tier 12 is where it increases the increases the duration of Berserk.
That's what Firelands.
Yeah.
Firelands, yeah.
Firelands.
Yeah.
You're gonna want Glyph of Berserk and Firelands for the extra duration, so you have a longer duration of that Berserk.
Yeah, that's why like in lower levels of gear and the first tier, so like tier 11, I use Tiger's Fury more than Berserk, and then but then again, it's very fight dependent.
There comes a point where Tiger's Fury. Yeah, there comes a point where Tiger's Fury overtakes Berserk, fight dependent and like duration of the fight dependent. Because like if you get a good enough procs on your tier 12, like you're gonna get a long Berserk timer, and just having that extra Tiger's Fury come back up after you get the end of your Berserk is just gonna be massive. You're gonna be like maxed out on energy most of the time.
Yeah, I think Firelands onwards. Yeah, as soon as you get into Firelands, like you're more or less probably just Berserk, Bloodletting, Rip, and then if there's a fight where for some reason you need to be able to mangle, like mangle is all you can do, then mangle will come in somewhere. I have a love-hate relationship with that third glyph, and I always have.
Yeah,
because I've always been between Berserk and Tiger's Fury.
I've looked at the glyphs for months, and just there's so many instances where this one's going to be better, this one's going to be better. So like that third spot is like more of a personal preference of what you feel like you're going to need it for the fight.
100%.
It makes it nice that we just learn glyphs now instead of having to carry them with us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's why you're carrying a stack of the Dust of Disappearance every freaking raid, so you can swap the glyphs every freaking fight.
I know for Boomy, I'm just looking forward to the Sims being up and running so that I can test these glyphs in different situations.
Yeah. And as far as the major glyphs go, it'll depend on what your raid role is. Like if you're going to be doing some off tanking, it's going to make sense to take stuff like Glyph of Frenzy to regen and Glyph of Maul, because there's not really a lot of major glyphs that affect feral DPS, but there are a lot of major glyphs that affect tanking. So there's feral charge would be one, I guess.
Yeah, it really depends on your role, but like instead of going Maul, because there's not a lot of fights where you're going to be off tanking and you're going to need that Maul. So I would actually go with Glyph of Thorns, because having that extra damage being done when your tanks are actually taking damage is going to be nice. And that's part of another one of the weaves that we might be doing is Thorn weaving. But with Thorns being on such a long cooldown and getting a reduced cooldown for that, it could be translating to more damage done and bosses dying faster.
Would you like Warcraft logs to attribute the thorns damage to the druid that applied the thorns?
Of course, because then ferals are going to want to do it on freaking cooldown. It's one of those things that I the more I'm thinking about it, the more it sounds like it's a really good and a bad idea at the same time.
I wonder if casting thorns can proc Omen.
It cannot. From what I've tested, it's such a long cooldown that I haven't really gotten any like proper testing for it. But
and who knows if it even works right on beta right now.
Yeah.
It does work properly on beta as far as like the spell power scaling of it, but it's also supposed to scale off of attack power.
Yeah, I mean it's damage, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't really proc off thorns.
Yeah, the major glyph setup that I have in my Wowhead builder right now is Frenzy, Regen, Thorns, Maul. Those are the 3 that I had because I was.
Well, I could argue for Rebirth over Maul.
No, I've got.
You could, yeah.
Too,
I was thinking like in a 10-man situation. If you're already in the situation where you're like one of the tanks, then like you might be helping tank trash, and that's the only reason why I had Maul in there. Because if you're tanking trash, you might be in bear form instead of cat form for trash, and then Maul would actually be useful.
Thrash is going to be a bigger AoE threat generation than Maul will.
I literally exclusively run Feral Charge, Ferocious Bite, Maul. Just because, again, Ferocious Bite don't sound like a lot of health, but you know, any passive healing you can do to yourself on fights like Cho'Gall, especially in the last phase where there's a lot of where it's a burst phase, like you know, your healers are not going to keep you up. Any minor healing you can do to yourself is going to be useful. Like, yeah, and think how important that is. It's an execute phase where all you're using all of your combo points on is Ferocious Bite. So it's like, I think Ferocious Bite's a fucking big glyph, to be honest with you.
It makes sense.
Yeah, for a lot of the heal-intensive fights, yeah, for sure.
In raids in Classic, we're trying to get rid of healers as fast as we can. So any self-healer like sort of option, then yeah. Because then it's like, oh yeah, we don't really need the Boomkin to be an off healer on this fight. They can just go full balance because everybody's using their personal self-healing. I like it.
Yeah, but that, I mean, obviously, I don't know. In that last phase, like I'll just use Cho'Gall as an example because it is like you get to a point where you start getting overrun. It's like kill the boss or we're gonna die. Just anything that anyone's got to reduce a bit of damage, to interrupt the tentacles, to do a bit of healing to yourself. It goes a long way. I would never run anything other than Glyph of Maul as a feral, by the way. Like that would always be in there. Just on the off chance that a tank dies, I need to go bear, need to pick a couple of mobs up. Like I just wouldn't use anything. I got to be honest, I'd never use Rebirth. That is one where I get why. Yeah, it's nice to have, but I just wouldn't run Rebirth. I can't justify it over the others. And Feral Charge, you know, it reduces the cooldown of Feral Charge cap by 2 seconds. That's like, and that's two seconds less. If it's quite a mobile fight, that 2 seconds is another Ravage. You know,
a free one.
Yeah, a free one, exactly. Like that is big as well. I think the major glyphs for druids are really good. Like we could sit and make an argument for any of them on it. Like if we were to go by fight basis.
Like we said in the first part, like the major glyph section is really where it's like it's super like not only subjective but fight dependent also. Like these are the ones that you swap out situationally for sure. So like there's a case to be made on almost every fight for almost any of them, depending on what your role is in the raid.
Yeah.
But I mean, we went over a bunch of them and talked about why each of them are good. So now hopefully anybody who watches can have a decent understanding of the ones that we talked about at least. Because I think we pretty much talked about all of the ones that are useful at all for feral.
Yeah.
I guess one thing we didn't prep for this, so I don't know, we probably shouldn't have to go back and do it, is like there is leveling requirements to these. So some of these you can get at like 20, 25. Some of them you can't get until later on. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about which glyphs you might be trying to use while you're leveling up.
You could use no glyphs all the way up and still be fine.
Oh yeah.
The glyphs are more impactful in raid situations than they are while you're leveling, because it's not going to really matter that much while you're leveling.
I agree.
Oh, and the
level 85 with no glyphs still.
There. Yeah, the levels are there on Wowhead. If you go to Wowhead, go to the talent calculator, hit the glyphs, whichever one you want to look at, it will tell you on the right hand side what level you can get that glyph.
Yeah, like for example, bloodletting 54, but that's because we learned shred super late. Rip is Rip is also 54.
Rip, yeah, Rip is way late. So like, just using no prime glyphs until basically level 80 is fine. Using no major glyphs until basically level 80 is fine. Like, none of these glyphs are super impactful enough while you're leveling that it's going to change how you level. It's just more for raid situations of which ones you would actually use during each fights, or
I mean, people are just going to buy the $60 level 80 boost anyway, so all of this talk that we're doing right now is pretty irrelevant.
It's a big old KW from me, dog.
But as long as they're getting like a good understanding of the talents and everything, like yeah, you've not got. It's not even about like going, oh, well, I'm going to follow this point for point when I level a druid. It's actually just understanding what all the talents do. That's why I don't really want to talk about resto too much
for yourself, for your own playstyle.
Yeah, because exactly. Like, if there's any key talents you want to talk about in resto, we can. But like, quite honestly,
yeah, there is.
Oh, what? Go on. Let's move on to resto. Like we've covered balance and feral extensively. Let's have like 5 minutes on resto.
My only thing really was Tree of Life, which we mentioned is now a cooldown. It's not like a form that you can like sit in Orgrimmar or Stormwind in and dance on the bridge in your tree form. It's a 3-minute cooldown. It lasts 25 seconds. And I knew that there was something, because like when you had your spec up there, Scotty, and you didn't have Starlight Wrath, I was like, why wouldn't he want to reduce the cast time of Wrath with that? But I think the reason was because Tree of Life at the very bottom says enhanced spells, Life Bloom, Wild Growth, Regrowth, Entangling Roots, and Wrath. And while you're in tree form, it's going to reduce the cast time of Wrath by 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So you would be GCD capped if you had both of those. So it makes sense to not have picked up in the balance tree Starlight Wrath.
Yeah,
that was my biggest thing.
Yeah, and you'd use Tree of Life as on Chimeron, I'd use it as an offensive cooldown, where when the boss enrages at the end, no one can get healed. So I'd actually make sure I've got Tree of Life ready for the end to pop Tree of Life and spam Wrath to help out with the damage at the end because I can't heal. But then obviously you do use it as a healing cooldown 99% of the time. But it's big.
And then the other ones that I see is Regrowth. It makes instant cast.
Yep.
And then Life Bloom can be cast on unlimited targets.
So that's the play. You go into Tree of Life and you spam Life Bloom on everyone, and Life Bloom uses Malfurion's gift. So Malfurion's gift, which is in the fourth tree on the right, gives you a Life Bloom spell a 2% chance. It'll be 4% with 2 points. To proc Omen of Clarity. So now you're gonna be able to put Life Bloom on 25 people. You're not going to put it on 25. Let's say you're going to put it on 9 people at a time, all with a 4% chance every tick to give you clear casting. Then you're doing instant cast regrowths with those clear casts. Yeah, so you see what I'm saying? And your instant cast regrowth is going to refresh the duration of Life Bloom. So you're just going Life Bloom, Life Bloom, Life Bloom. Oh, clear cast, quick, regrowth, boom. Life Bloom, clear cast, bang, regrowth. Like, you're just pumping fucking heals for like the entire duration of Tree of Life.
And for Wild Growth, I looked it up because it wasn't listed.
It's like 2 extra targets, isn't it?
Yeah, affects an additional 2 targets. And then Entangling Root makes that an instant cast, which sounds pretty PvP-esque.
Yeah, and even, honestly, Wild Growth, like, Wild Growth is like bottom of my list. When I'm in Tree of Life, yeah, all right, you'll press. I'm not saying you wouldn't press Wild Growth, but really you want to maximize the amount of clear casts you're going to get out for more regrowths that you can get out. Like, a Wild Growth hitting 2 extra targets is like, it's whatever.
From 5 to 7, yeah.
Yeah, being able to in that GCD stick another life bloom out that's going to give you another 4% chance, over the next 6, 7 ticks, whatever it is, more depending on haste, to get another free regrowth. Like, it's mental. Like, Tree of Life, when you pop it, like in a 25-man, it's more mental than it is in a 10-man, obviously, but it's a big cooldown. And the reason they done it, which I think we spoke about in the last podcast, was, it was a big point of, like, some druids loved it, some hated it. So, like, I've lost my tree form, but you've not. They've made Resto Druid as powerful as every other healer without needing to be in tree form, but then gave you a massive cooldown. Which was the whole point. It was like, wait, so you need to be in a form, what limits your offensive ability, it limits what abilities you can use, but the trade-off is then you're as good as another healer. Now in Cata, you're as good as every other healer all the time, but your tree form is now a big cooldown.
Is there anything that ever reduces its cooldown from 3 minutes? I was just trying to look it up. I don't see anything.
No, it's always
listed
3 minutes. Yeah, it's a 3-minute.
I was like, maybe there would be a tier set bonus or something, or a glyph, but
no. Yeah, it's your big healing cooldown. Yeah, it's a 3-minute cooldown.
The glyph, all the glyph for it does is change it to look like the OG tree form. That's all.
yeah.
Yep. And it's a minor glyph. It's not even a major or a prime.
Yeah, it's like a cosmetic.
So it's just like, it's a cosmetic glyph. That's what all the minors are. Like, minors are whatever you want to use them for, kind of thing. Although every druid's going to take Unburdened Rebirth. Like, there's no point not to. It's a free bag slot at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And cheers, Zoid. Thanks, mate. And also, Ashley, thank you for the super chat. And Philip, thank you for becoming a member as well, by the way. First chance I've got just to take a breath to say, cheers, guys. Legends.
Thanks for the support.
Yeah. But honestly, outside of that, for Resto, like Resto, it plays very different to what it does in Wrath. It's a lot closer to how TBC Resto works in terms of, you're always wanting to keep Life Bloom stacked on the tank. The difference now is you can refresh it constantly with Nourish or Healing Touch. Healing Touch is going to be if you need a big heal. Nourish if it's a nice efficient heal. You're still going to be, black blanketing the raid with hots. Resto is fucking strong in Cata. That's all I'll say.
I know the cast times change, the dot durations all change, and that was a big thing for me as a balanced druid. Was like, Nourish takes like 3 seconds now, whereas it was like 1.5 seconds in Wrath. It felt great to use. And then even the dots or the hots from Regrowth and Rejuve for me lasts 11 seconds, but Regrowth lasts 5.5 seconds. I know these are bugged right now, but just to give an idea of how long these hots are lasting, like Regrowth used to last 18, 21 seconds, something like that. And then you could have that up, nourish your heart off. And now it's like I regrowth and I get like 1, maybe 2 nourish casts off before it's gone, and I have to have something else. So yeah, just keep that in mind with your healing spells.
But then you do, so now haste works differently, where it doesn't shorten the duration of the hot as well. At the same time, it just increases the amount of ticks you get. So it will always be the same amount. I always found that a double-edged sword in Wrath, where it's like, oh, great, I've got loads of haste. Especially when I was playing Shadow Priest during Alduar, with you, Go, and Table. Yeah, like, you'd get a shitload of haste, you'd get your haste potion up, you'd get lust, and you'd put, like, Vampiric Touch up, and it's like, well, it's great, it's doing loads of damage really quick, but now I need to refresh it again. Like, 3 seconds later, I need to put it on again. Whereas at least in Cata, it's like, you've got those breakpoints where you're always going to be refreshing your dot or your hot at the same time, as in seconds, but in that amount of seconds, the amount of times it will tick is going to be increased. which I find a lot better. Do you know what I mean? When you're getting more haste, it's like it's great. It's doing it all quicker, but now I need to refresh it quicker. Whereas with Cata, yeah, you could go from a 5 second a rejuve that ticks, I don't know, say 7 times to 11 times, depending on your haste, or 6 times to 9 times, whatever. But you're right, yeah. But that's why it all changes because of how haste affects it.
What does Resto get from Spirit? Because I know
MP5.
it's like intellect is okay. I knew intellect was really big, but I think somebody brought it up earlier, something about like Spirit. I don't remember what it like. That's their main stat that they stack is Spirit over intellect too, or like is it int and then Spirit?
Int and then Spirit. Int is spell power, which increases your healing, and Spirit.
Yeah.
But Spirit's one of those. It's one of those stats where how much do you need? Like you can't really say, all right, you're aiming for 4K Spirit. Like, how much do you need? How good are you at healing? How quick is the fight? You know what I mean? The Spirit ultimately is MP5. So there's never really a number that you need. Intellect is still king. But for any healer, every healer, intellect is king. Because that's going to make your heals do more. Whereas Spirit is going to make you regen more.
I like
every healer is going to want to just drum straight intellect now, pretty much.
Yeah.
No longer just the pally meme. It's every healer because spell power gets converted from intellect now.
And then you get nice big, you get trinkets like Core of Ripeness. You get trinkets that give you nice big Spirit procs. Chance on cast will give you like 1.9k Spirit or something. And then you watch your mana go up. It procs and you're like, oh shit.
Okay.
That's what I mean. It's like, it's a big difference.
I think that's where I got it from. That video, your profession video, I think might be what's coming to my head. I think you mentioned in that something about a Spirit.
The cloak enchant. Like you get 580 Spirit on tailoring.
Yeah. So is that what they're going to be going for? Is the 580 Spirit? Because there's an intellect proc too, right? So it'd probably be the intellect one.
No, on my paladin, I do. Hang on, my paladin. Is it my paladin or my priest? It might be my priest. There's got the Spirit one. No, I'd still go for the Spirit one as a healer. The Spirit proc. Just for the extra regen. Yeah, it's really difficult because it's like, do you know what I mean? What do you need? Yeah, but it comes down to what do you need? Yeah. It's like, intellect is going to make you heal more. Spirit is going to give you regen. But when it comes to a proc, I would still prefer a Spirit proc. So when it procs, it's going to give me mana. Rather than
instead of slightly better heals.
Instead of slightly better heals, because it could give me slightly better heals at a time where I don't need to heal. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if it procs
right before phase transition,
exactly. Whereas if it procs right before phase transition, it's Spirit, like it's going to be useful.
That's perfect. Yeah.
It's a difficult one. You need to know. If you can get through a fight, ultimately, if you go for a fight and you're on full mana, you've probably got too much Spirit.
Yep. I have the same mindset that you do, Scotty, with that. Like, if you finish a fight with like 1% health, 1% mana, you did your fucking job. Like,
you've got the right stats.
Perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
100% right. 50%, then like you could have allocated points somewhere else, probably.
Yeah, you could have spent more.
Yeah. You could have taken more damage and gotten more Alkin Frenzy procs. Fuck.
But the healing.
Sorry, I've been a little quiet. I've been going through and trying to because they changed the colors of some gems and stuff. I'm trying to figure out what Spirit is now. Because Spirit was blue.
It used to be blue.
It used to be blue. Now it's yellow, I think.
Oh, look, it might still be blue.
It's blue. Spirit's blue.
Sparkling
Spirit's
Chimera's Eye, the JC gem. Yeah, it's blue. Hit is blue now, so that's interesting. But yeah, like that's like spirit counts kind of like as a secondary stat. Like it doesn't appear in green with the other secondary stats at the bottom of a piece or whatever. But like for the purposes of reforging, you can reforge your spirit away from a piece of gear, or reforge a piece that doesn't have spirit to have spirit. Reforge one of the secondary stats away or whatever. So that's like something to keep in mind too. Is like if you have too much spirit on your gear or whatever, you can always just reforge it away to something else. Or if you feel like you don't have enough, you can reforge into it.
Yeah.
Are there any cool glyphs that Resto takes that makes their spells like impacted that they're like, oh yeah, for Prime you need this one? Or is it kind of like the other specs?
Yeah, I'd say not really. I mean, Life Bloom. No. Honestly, none of them. Swiftmend. Okay, I'd say Swiftmend. Looking at them, to be fair, Swiftmend.
You said you didn't even get Swiftmend.
What? No, I didn't get Nature's Swiftness.
I thought you did. Nature Swift. Okay.
No, but Swiftmend not consuming the hot, that's nothing new. You know, that's a wrath glyph.
That's a good one. Glyph, I would say Glyph of Rejuve is decent too, because if you're blanketing, your Rejuve dealing 10% more healing is a good one.
Yeah, I just meant they're quite boring. You know, like Life Bloom. That's why I laughed when I said Life Bloom. It's like it increases the critical effect chance. It's like critical effect chance of Rejuve doing 10% more. Like they're kind of, it's just output. You know, they're quite boring glyphs. Whereas at least like Swiftmend does something useful. It's like I know it's not going to consume one of the hots.
Yeah, it's at least interesting.
Yeah, I don't find
the
something. Others. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't find the others particularly interesting. It's just output. And again, could you literally raid all Cata content without Glyph of Life Bloom? Yeah, it's like literally 10% crit. Like you'll be fine. Could you heal all without Glyph of Rejuve? 10% extra healing with it. Don't get me wrong, it's a good amount of healing, but could I heal without Swiftmend? No, that hurts when you know Swiftmend
like
a tank
two
and it
GCDs
goes
into one.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge.
It's such an impactful glyph that to the point where it makes it seem like they designed Swiftmend wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have to burn a glyph slot just to get the spell to work the way it's supposed to.
I mean, Glyph of Regrowth is nice.
There's not a lot of like healing glyphs in the first place, so they kind of had to give him something.
Yeah.
But yeah, touch on Regrowth. That's nice because that's an odd one
from the Wrath. Like the Wrath Regrowth glyph is different. Like the Wrath Regrowth glyph makes it so that your regrowth heals for more. Like it's 20% extra healing if your target already has the regrowth hot on them. So this is changed from the Wrath version to now instead, if you have regrowth on a target and they dip below 50% health, regrowth automatically gets refreshed to its full duration. But like regrowth also doesn't last as long as it does in Wrath.
Yeah,
Wrath regrowth is 18 seconds.
It's like 6 seconds in this one.
Yeah, so that's like of all of the ones that we've talked about, regrowth is probably the least impactful, I would say.
Yeah, it's just a weird one. Again, you know, in terms of glyphs, I wouldn't use it. I've not even learned it. I've not even bought it on my Druid, on White Mane. But yeah, purely because I wouldn't use it. But it's interesting. You know, it's a bit of a weird one. If everyone's low and you're spamming regrowths while you're in tree form, and then they're dipping down whilst you're trying to keep everybody up, and then it's refreshing the duration. But you could get quite a lot of worth out of that on something like fucking Fandrel, or like the last boss before Ragnaros in Firelands, where everybody's taking damage while you're stacked and he's in Scorpion form, and then you're like literally putting regrowths on everyone, and then he's still spamming. It's a bit of a cheesy strat, which I'm sure we'll all get to do at some point, but
the one thing I'm wondering, and I'm sure this isn't the way that it works, but the way that it reads, your regrowth heal over time will automatically refresh its duration on targets out of below 50% health. Does that mean it has to be on the target before they get to 50%? Or if you regrowth somebody who's below 50%, it just never runs out, ever?
No, they'd have to dip under 50%.
And you hit them with the regrowth?
Yeah, with it on. They'd have to have it on, they go under 50%, then it will refresh and carry on.
it just seems like such a weird, because like the duration is so short. It's like a super niche. Like if somebody is at 50% and they're about to take damage, throw a regrowth on them. What, they get an extra tick? Or like, did they take the damage
Like
before they even
max,
get a tick and then it refreshes and they don't get any extra ticks at all? Like,
there's a reason why I haven't learnt
glyph.
it yet, Table.
It's just a weird.
That's one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess fucking Life Bloom it is.
Yeah.
The third one.
Exactly. Life Bloom Rejuve. Like honestly, Life Bloom Rejuve and Swiftmend. Like I don't. They're going to be the go-to glyphs.
Glyph of Wrath, because if they're popping Wraths out, maybe a little.
This ain't Season of Discovery. This is Cata.
Chimeron.
Yeah.
I look forward
to Cata. This isn't seasons.
I look forward to go dying when I'm healing on a druid, and I go, well, I mean, I took your advice, mate, and I was raffing. I didn't know you wanted me to heal you.
Pumping Wraths in my tree form.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, you're talking about Chimeron. If you got Chimeron, you got Fury of the Storm Rage. Throw in that Glyph of Wrath.
Yeah. But for that specific fight, I mean, if you was a serious
3 minutes.
But no, if you was a serious resto druid where all you do is resto and you had 2 resto specs, like in all seriousness, like there will be resto druids where that's all they do is heal, and both their specs will be resto. They could have one with Fury of the Storm Rage and one without, and in the one where they've got it, they have Glyph of Wrath. Like absolutely, I completely agree. I know you was probably fucking trolling and trying to be funny, but it kind of makes sense.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it does make
that's
sense,
what I've been doing in
doesn't it?
SOD.
Yeah, I'm really trying to figure out why they put all this Wrath stuff into Resto, and then for them to not want to use it. It's like to me it made sense when I scrolled all the way to the bottom. I was like, oh yeah, Wrath is all the way down there, so it probably has some sort of use.
Yeah, I just think it's like it is for the die-hard healers. Like you're not going to take it in an all-round healing spec. That's the thing. Like the same way if you was like all you wanted to be was feral. Like you don't care about anything else. You'd have a dedicated feral spec that you tank in. You'd have a dedicated feral spec that you DPS in. You'd like, and that's it. Because whilst you can do both in the same spec, you could still like have a bit more of a fun time, if you had a dedicated DPS, a dedicated tank. And if you was a resto, you'd have like, this is my maximum output healing spec, and then you'd have like, this is my spec where I can do a bit of damage, maybe for 5 mans or whatever. That's sort of how I see it.
Here's the thing about the dedicated tanking spec, though. I don't think that like anybody's going to be a main tank as a feral. I don't think a lot of guilds will actually take a main tank as a feral. So like you have one that's an off tank spec, and then you have one that's a pure DPS spec.
Yeah, I guess it depends on at the higher end, yeah, for sure. For in like a lot of the casual groups, it might be that the best tank that is in their guild is playing a druid, so that's their main tank.
Yeah, I could see that one too. Yeah,
that's about the only thing I can think of.
But even what Bearbis said,
even
like,
then,
I think that's a good point. You could have like that I'm gonna off tank this fight, so I've got that spec, and then my other spec is pure cat. Like that works as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
but I think the people that are saying that, oh, they have a feral tank, why not just have their feral tank reroll a DK? Like the DK starts at 55, and most people have a DK that's 80 already. I'd say most people because I know Go doesn't.
I don't either. My DK is 59.
I think I don't remember where I made a DK, but I did the leveling, the starting zone quest, I think. I had like a Project 60 thing in Wrath, and I leveled up a DK up to 60, I think.
So your DK is higher than mine.
I had in Classic. Oh, it was fucking brutal, dude. I will never do that starting DK zone ever again.
On the last Wrath private server before Wrath Classic launched, I was a Frost DK. And I vowed to myself I would never level a DK again. I was pumping, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying it's not fun. But But as soon as it was like Unholy was the meta, I was like, oh, fuck that. Like, if it's not Frost, I'm not even leveling one.
So Bear, you were saying like, oh, if you're feral, why not just roll a DK? You're talking about like if they have the main tank, like why would they stay doing it as a druid, just level DK instead?
Yeah, why do all of your raids as a feral main tank when you could just level a DK and they start at 55 and they do way more mitigation and healing than a feral druid does. Like the whole point, in my opinion, to have a feral tank is to have them fulfill that off tank role and still do a lot of DPS when they're not tanking.
Yeah, the warden and stuff.
Yeah, like just be a warden. Like
that's pretty much what I'm gonna be doing.
There's a lot of situations where a feral tank would be really good at, like Chimeron, where the absorbs from that fight and you're not getting the extra healing from a DK is really useful because it allows your main tank to survive longer. But the defensives that a blood DK can bring are just way more powerful than a feral druid can put out.
So there may be like every once in a while, like the niche situation where like you might specifically want a feral to main tank a fight or something like that, like a one fight out of the whole raid or whatever. But it's not like not going to be anybody's first choice to be your general purpose main tank.
It's your healers parses main tank. If your healers want to parse, they bring a feral.
Oh,
yeah, that could work. Yeah.
Because warriors and paladins block way too much, and ferals are just pure dodge, so they're going to be absorbing a lot of the hits anyways with their savage defense. And if you want to parse as a healer, that's what you bring as a main tank.
Hang on, Berbis, can we just go back? From what I hear, warriors and paladins only block for one.
This is a broken beta. I thought we had discussed this.